To Pretty Lies and Alibis. Let's seek the truth and travel the long road to justice together. What you know, Alibis? Welcome to a big live episode of Pretty Lies and Alibis. I'm GiGi, joined by Miss Angenette Levy, Mr. Joseph Scott Morgan, one of my favorite podcasters in the world, and Biggie. So, how are you guys doing?
Esther, your kitchen.
I'm great.
Doing well.
Doing great. Very well. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for
Yes,
having me.
I'm just so happy you guys are here. I mean, look, a week ago we did this, the three of us, and never thought we'd be here today because I told my listeners I will eat my shoe if George Wagner takes the stand. So that day I was like, I take it back. I'm not eating my shoe. But all right. So real quick before we get started, I want to show this clip because it is something we may have to play it twice. So before the jury was brought in, that's when Parker stands up and says he's going to bring George Wagner to the stand. Okay, so first viewing, you got to watch the prosecutor, particularly Canepa, who's bent down at a box, just thinking there's nobody here in the courtroom, there's no witnesses, business as usual. Then you got to watch Judge Deering, okay, because it's hilarious. All right, so we're going to do this now, and then we are going to get into our discussion. Here we go.
Yes. Does the call George Wagner for?
Oh, wow. I've never seen that before.
Yeah, so this is before the jury comes in.
Yeah, Canepa, you about snapped her neck.
Oh, yeah. And then I don't know what he was doing on the far right. What's his name's leaving me, Eric? What is it?
Jason.
The prosecutor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the bailiff. It's
Okay.
Andy Wilson.
So like he kind of stands up like he doesn't know what to do. Judge Deering kind of leans to the side a bit. Okay, here we go. One more time and then we'll get started.
Was the defense going to call witness stand?
Yes. Does the call George Wagner for?
Oh boy. Well, so overall thoughts. I mean, what did you guys think when they said George Wagner was taking the stand? Angenette, what do you think?
Well, so we were in our morning meeting when that happened, and our executive producer said, wait. We were all on a Zoom call. They're calling George Wagner to the stand. And I was like, what? And I did that because I actually, and I don't know if I'm talking out of school, but Biggie and I were texting the day before, and I kind of said, I think I alluded to this, that I thought Deering said something that got my antenna up or something. And I wondered, I said, look, I'm just wondering out loud, are they going to call George? Is it okay if I reveal that?
Yeah, she's not fibbing at all because I said, hang on a minute.
He thought I had the inside track.
Yeah. There's something about but yes.
What about you, Mr. Morgan?
I was actually getting ready to go teach, and I'd been down in my office. We're in the middle of advisement right now. And I was, had all my stuff ready, packed up, getting ready to head upstairs to the lecture hall, and flipping through my phone. And I got to be honest with you guys, I've been involved in this case for so long now. I don't remember what I lectured on. Afterwards, I was stunned. I really was. I know that I couldn't get done with lecture quick enough.
Right,
you can't really, give it away, with kids. And so as soon as I got done, I only had one lecture, almost broke my neck getting back down the stairs, almost like that woman did when she was raising her head up. I was trying to get back downstairs to my office and shut the door very quietly, put my headphones on, and just kind of sit back and watch. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I just did not see it coming.
Yeah, me either. It was just something. I mean, but I really think I've been thinking about this since that day. I kind of think the day that Jake confessed, they started preparing him for the stand. That's kind of my opinion, because he was really well coached. I thought he was. What did you guys think?
Yeah, I thought he did. I thought he did really well. and held up really well. I mean, there wasn't, long pauses in between answers. There wasn't um, just a lot of empty space. Now there was a lot of I don't recalls, but
Right. Yeah.
I mean, he was prepared. I
Mhm.
mean, and they had done a good job, in my opinion.
I think so.
I'd have to agree with that. The clips that I was able to go back and watch relative to Jake, I don't know what I was expecting from him. I didn't know if I thought that he'd be scattered,
Mhm.
kind of, off kilter, if you will.
Right.
But and it wasn't necessarily a withering, cross-examination that they put him under, but they were very specific and they had it planned out, what they were going to do. And they just never could really, make him look, they couldn't weaken him at all
Mhm.
on the stand.
Right.
And then you contrast that with, you know, I, I got to give the devil his due here with George. I got to tell you, he seemed like he was prepped pretty well too. They knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree. I mean, they, the seat, he was never uncomfortable in that seat. And she never made him uncomfortable in that
Yeah.
seat.
Mm-mm.
I felt
Well,
like
yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
sorry. I kind of felt like at times that he was the one in control in some respects on cross, because I didn't feel he looked uncomfortable.
I agree.
No, and I tell you, for me, I've actually went back and watched it a couple of times, and there is a difference in direct and cross. He knew what was going to be asked. He almost would start answering sometimes before the defense attorney was done asking the question. But at the same time, if you skip to cross, there are times where I don't recall. And then you got somebody who is telling you the dimensions of a house he lived in when he was 13. And then he can't remember what he said at probably one of the most craziest moments of his life in Montana. Which, by the way, what do you guys think? We haven't seen that interrogation.
Well, I think it's weird. You would think he would have reviewed that. He said that he hadn't gone through most of the discovery after one of Angie Canepa's questions to him, which is stunning to me, because if you're going to prep a defendant to go on the stand in a case where he's facing the death penalty, you want to know what you said to law enforcement. So they have a copy of that. And I remember specifically Angie Canepa saying in court one day when there was some type of discussion about this, that they didn't want George to basically to be able to testify without getting on the stand. So they weren't going to play that interview. So there is a recording. I mean, it exists, a recording and a transcript. But I mean, obviously it's full of nothing but denials. There's nothing incriminating on it, or else the state would have played it. But I found it odd because you made such a big deal about this Montana trip where you interrogated all of them. We heard from Angela, we heard from Billy. You didn't want to put Jake's interrogation on there, because then you have to own that your guy's a liar. Because he lied to you for hours, and he's lied to you all the way up until April of 2021. So I find it odd that they didn't play George's statement just so they could play it. I mean, they already know he has it, but they could play it. And then let's see what he, in preparation for possibly putting him on the stand, because you've got his interview, and then you could have contrasted it with the wiretaps where he's going to bring all hell, and he's all jacked up on caffeine and stackers and God knows what else. So,
yeah. So, I mean, I think the thing to me now, because both sides rested today, we have next week off, and then we have closings that following week. I was shocked they're not going to put anybody up for rebuttal after cross exam, because for me, you could see her trying to really kind of poke the bear, and he wasn't falling for it. And when he didn't fall for it, I felt like Canepa was getting frustrated and flustered, and it kind of came out in subtle ways. But, I think now it's really crazy for me to think all these years we've been told the shoe print, that's going to be the biggest thing. And then he testifies for an hour, and then Parker gets up and says, You know, can you say with scientific certainty George Wagner had that shoe on? No. So it's like, now what do we have? I mean, the evidence against George, you know, you can't tell me he didn't know. These people like were all but joined at the head together. But you have two people who took a deal, and that's essentially all you have on the guy.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing.
Do you guys think it's weird? And I'm sorry to kind of ask a question in the middle of your podcast, GiGi, but
No. This is our show, dude.
I think it's well, thanks. I appreciate it. I find it weird that we haven't heard one person, unless I missed it, you know, but I don't recall one. We had foam impressions taken of Billy, Jake, and George's feet at the sheriff's office in the summer of 2018. I still don't know what size shoe George Wagner wears.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
I've tried to look at his feet in court. I'm not a good you know.
It was very
Shoe
convoluted. It was, and I think that it's left a lot of us, you know, kind of scratching our heads. And I was talking to you guys, you know, beforehand, and let me just back up a little bit, you know, because everybody, you know, going in, everybody just assumed, I think, that there would just be copious amounts of DNA evidence at the scene. I think from Jump Street, a lot of people assumed that because the scene was so markedly violent. And, you know, you think about how DNA is deposited, you think that there's going to be a struggle. At minimum, you're going to have degraded touch DNA. And, you know, and they made such a big deal about the trailers. You know, I remember going on and on about that, you know, a couple of years ago and talking about, and I still to this day have not seen a case like this where you have mobile homes that are moved. And of course they'd already worked the scene, but it was a weird thing, you know, that kind of popped up.
Mm-hmm.
So you thought that they were going to harvest the, you know, just tons of evidence. And I guess in one sense they did, but it turned out, I think, to be, and maybe Angenette can back me up on this, Pike County, my understanding at least, was that they had pled for more funds in order to, you know, take care of everything, you know, all those little ancillary things that come along with the case. There's kind of a pot of money that you have to go into in order to prosecute something like this. Again, you know, they've talked about how this is the largest homicide investigation in the history of the state of Ohio.
Mm-hmm.
And as I was saying earlier, I knew something was up when they pushed all their chips in on Footwear, because you don't do that. You don't reach out to a guy like this who is highly respected. He's highly respected forensic scientist in his field, specifically in his field. He's published, worked for the FBI, worked for the FBI lab, and then this is what you get, you know, at the end of the day. And I think that some of that is a bit, you know, it's left, I think, some of us kind of befuddled. You've got the ballistic evidence to a great degree. You know, we've got that infamous picture of the hand holding the weapon. One like back in 2015 or whatever it was that you know, we had with Jake and all of that. We've got the idea of the solvent, you know, the solvent catcher, you know, and the creation of the suppressors. Purchasing, you know, was a big deal, you know, as it applies to, you know, kind of the digital footprint that they had left behind. But, you know, when it comes down to actual physical evidence, as it relates to George, I'm not speaking to anybody else here. As it relates to George, a bit of a disappointment.
Yeah, it's not there. It's not there.
It's very difficult. I mean, we can you know, we can try to will it all we want. You know, we can,
Right.
we think, you know, we think that we can make that happen. And it's not on us to make it happen. It's on the prosecution to make it happen. I don't know. I mean, if I was sitting on the jury, I think, you know, I'd want to say, okay, and,
Right.
and, you know, they've been there for, I don't know how many days now, 30, I can't remember.
Over
Keep up with the
40,
number.
Yeah.
Yeah, over 40. I'm sorry. I apologize. Yeah. Over 40 days. You know, I heard reports of people drifting off in the jury, and that happens. You know, I don't know. Angenette could probably speak to that more, but, you know, it's hard to hold somebody's attention that long. And you want a payoff at the end, I think.
I can speak to that too, Joe Scott. There were times in that courtroom where I promise you, them, those jurors, including the alternates, they wasn't in that courtroom because things that was being talked about had already been talked about multiple times before, or it was just things that, scientific, and, they just wasn't really understanding it. They couldn't. I mean, because they're not forensics people, I mean, and then you have the shoe guy, like Gigi said, come in to finish it off and say, no, we can't say he was wearing that. And that's the last thing they heard.
Yeah, and that is, and you're right, you are there. And one of the hallmarks of an expert witness, well, one of the hallmarks of a really good prosecutor is to take, egg-headed people like me that have certain expertise in fields. And now I work on this myself. If I'm talking to somebody, I don't like to talk down to people. I like to talk to them like they're regular folks. If you as an expert have the ability to take, complex scientific constructs and break it down so that everybody can understand them, it's part of forensic science. You're not sitting in some lecture hall somewhere and talking to a bunch of college students here. You're talking to everyday folks, the best people in the world, people that the blue collar folks that are out there and they've gotten selected for jury duty. You have to stand and deliver when it comes time to explain these things. It's key to have a prosecutor that has that kind of self-awareness, that walks you through it, and they walk you through it in a manner in which the everyday guy can connect the dots and you don't get long-winded.
Right.
And I hate to talk about O.J. Simpson, but one of the things that lost the jury with O.J. Simpson, this is way before the days where we had really high-end DNA. They droned on and on and on about DNA, and you had, everybody was taking a nap by the end of that. What purpose does it serve? So you have to make it concise. And now, like y'all said, we're up above 40 days now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Angenette, so what do you think about, what did you find the most credible about George's testimony?
Wow, that's a big question. Well, you know what? Well, first of all, can I just say I give George Wagner props for getting up there and going on camera, even though I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think they should have asked him if he wanted to opt in because he's the defendant. He's not a witness.
Right.
But his mom and his brother, let's face facts. They were too chicken to get up there.
Yep.
I mean, to get up there and own it. And he got up there and he was ready to do this on camera. Obviously, I found it credible when he was talking about Billy raising them to do the lock picking and Jake being the better one at picking the locks and all of that stuff. I mean, all of that, rang true. I think it's like really sad that this is how they were raised. Sorry, my dog keeps opening my office door. But anyway, so, I don't know. Part of me kind of was like, I could see the whole caffeine thing. You get on a rant or you're just raving and venting about something. But at the same time, I was like, I don't know about that. But I mean, some of the stuff that he was saying, like, part of me could see him thinking if he was raised that all cops out there in Southeast Ohio are crooked. And there is a lot of police corruption out there. I mean, I'm not going to say, I shouldn't say a lot. I don't know that for sure. But when we were out there covering this case in the beginning, we heard things. We heard a lot about police corruption out that way. And so I kind of felt like I could believe that he was raised to think they were, cops are crooked and you can't trust them. And, they're going to try to pull a fast one on you. I don't know about the whole, like, oh, I went home and I went to bed, I don't know how you would even remember that. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't questioned about that night until 13 months later, right? May of 2017. So I wasn't so sure about that. Like, would you remember that specific date over a year later? I don't
Yeah.
think you would.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know, but it's a lot of stuff he said to me seemed pretty credible as like far as his upbringing and stuff like that. I don't know. It was I thought he did. I actually thought he did really well, and I thought Parker did a really good job walking him through his testimony.
Yeah, I think so too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, and it's been interesting to watch the reactions of people who watched the testimony, and some of my listeners who have followed this case. You two are kind of like the originals on this case. I mean, you guys have been on since day one, and a lot of the listeners have too, and some are local. And I've had people reach out who knew the Wagners and the Rodens, and a couple of people who actually knew both families now have had a little bit of doubt, I guess you could say. And then just all across the board, I've had people who really just said, wow, now I don't know how I feel.
Right.
They're so used to for 6 years feeling like he's part of them. He was there. He did it. And then he gets on the stand and he's got this kind of soft voice. He never broke eye contact with Canepa, not one time. Even when but she kind of threw softball questions. Like if I were her, I would have been like, okay, so Jake, his retinas or his pupils are deteriorating. So he was able to go in these dark houses and shoot people. I mean, I would have done those hard questions like that. How was he able to do that? But yeah, I mean, it's been interesting to watch the reactions of people who for years have said,
he's swung a lot of people on social media that have, where they was hanging, from the gallows to, well, now wait a minute, I'm gonna have to think about this now,
right.
And that's bad. I mean, when you're talking about 8 souls that were taken for something so silly, I mean, it's just incredible.
Yeah, it really is. It's terrible. But so I really kind of wonder. I did read somebody that had a local report about the jury's reaction. There was some eye rolling apparently going on in the jury. So you do have people clearly that body language wise were not convinced. And it was interesting because you think George was solid as a rock, but if you watch when he's standing up about to give his oath or whatever, he is tapping those fingers on his leg. Obviously he's nervous, but yeah. So some people in the jury, they said nobody really took notes too. Everybody was focused in.
That's exactly. Oh, you mean just when George was on the stand?
Yeah, I mean, but there was a mixture too. There were people who kind of, according to this person, said that some people looked at times when he was telling sort of the sad stories, especially about his dog Rover that got ate by. It took me 5 minutes. I was like, "What is it?" I forgot how he said coyote, but I was like, "It got ate by a what?"
Coyote, yeah.
But he called it like something kind of but people did show kind of like sympathetic body language when he was talking about certain things in his childhood. So, it's going to be a very interesting verdict watch, I think.
Yeah, real quick, GiGi, I just wanted to tell you about the notes for the whole, for the whole 10-ish weeks.
Oh, yeah, that you've taken consideration.
There's not a lot of note taking going on over there in the jury. There's an alternate juror who is literally writing a book. She never looks up from her notebook. But I promise you, if we were able to see those notebooks, people would be stunned at the lack of amount of ink or lead that's on that paper.
Interesting. That is interesting. Yeah. I just don't. Yeah. So I really kind of anticipated that maybe she would recall Jake or Angela after that cross. Did anybody else think that might be coming?
I wondered when they went back into chambers and they said they were talking about scheduling. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Are we talking about scheduling in private because you don't want the public to know they're coming back? And then I was a little surprised when, they rested.
Yeah.
Yeah. As far down this road as they went with Jake and Angela, I really suspected, I concur with this. I thought that they would use them to rebut. what George had done up on the stand, to diminish it. But, it's a grand finale, to this. I think the uncle testified today, if I'm not mistaken. I can't remember that gentleman's name, but the
He was
one that they
supposed
bought the truck
to.
from.
Yeah, he was
Yeah,
he was supposed to.
and then he didn't.
Yeah, and there was confusion over dates and all these other things, names and all these sorts of things, and so that that gives a very scattered appearance to it. You got to be on top of your game even after 40 days. You have to be able to come prepared, because this is what your life is dedicated to for that moment in time.
Right.
One of the things that really shocked me, and this is very non-scientific on my part, but I don't know if anybody else was surprised. I'd never really heard George speak. And then when he spoke, the voice that issued forth from him, I didn't expect that. It sounded different. I expected kind of a deep baritone voice.
Mhm.
And there was something different about it to
Mhm.
me. And I don't know that much can be read into that, but, I was reflecting on it, and I'm wondering, the jury has sat there for a long time and they've stared at this guy from across the room. They have. They watched every movement, every time he stands up, exits the court, every time he comes back in, leaning over to whisper to counsel. And then suddenly he gets up there on the stand. The first thing, he's swearing in, and you hear this voice come out of him. And it's one of those moments where it didn't seem like the voice matched the person for me. And I
Mhm.
wonder if the jury picked up on that at all. There was no nervousness in it. It was just the tonality of it was just different.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no, I was the
expected
same
it
way.
to be, I don't know, maybe a deeper, more gruff voice, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, no, I was the same way when he started speaking, 'cause I thought, okay, well, he has a very high pitched voice when he's bringing all hell with him. But
Right.
I kind of thought maybe he was just excited. And I was like you guys. I was very shocked. And I mean, that might work to his advantage. I mean, because really you think about it, now I'm honestly wondering how death was ever on the table for him.
Yeah, that's another thing for me too. We're talking about the homicide charges, but I'm really wondering um if conspiracy charges are in jeopardy, relative to this. It's hard. I think that that he would not have had some kind of awareness after the fact. And I think that the way the law is structured, I don't know, Angenette, maybe you can help me with that, but is that still something that's, that is, are they at risk in that area as well?
I don't know, because for the conspiracy stuff to kind of stick, I think the state will have had to have proven that he knew. Well, I think either before, during, or before, during, or after, and also they're going to give. Canepa said during jury instruction, or during jury selection, she told the jurors, she kept using this example of, like, say your friend says, "Hey, go drive this car for me. I'm going to go rob a bank." And you're like, "Hey, you can go in there and rob the bank, but if you kill, I don't want you killing anybody." And, it doesn't matter. You still drove the car and the person went in and killed somebody. You're still guilty. And she talked about lifting somebody's foot up to help them maybe get in a window or something like that, so they'll still get a complicity instruction. And it's weird because, like, a part of me feels like there might be some jurors who are like, yeah, he had to have done this. He had to have been there. That family lives together. They do everything together, this, that, and the other. But I don't know. I mean, some of those wiretaps, part of me is like, okay, is he that out of it to think that BCI was really trying to frame his family? I just can't imagine that he's that out of it to think. I mean, maybe he was, if he's like so enmeshed with them, but at the same time, how could you be that enmeshed with them and not know about this, other than the fact that they were saying they didn't talk about it, but I
Right.
don't know. I don't know if the conspiracy stuff, I was just getting ready to pull up the indictment. So, to look at that again, but I need to look at the charges again, because there's 22 of them, but I don't know. I mean, I could see some jurors having some doubt, and I'll tell you, there's this one juror, and I think I was telling Big E about this. There was this one juror during jury selection, and I knew she would make it through. She's a younger woman, and she was living in another county when this started, or when this case first happened, when the homicides happened. And they asked her, well, what did you know? You said in your jury questionnaire that you knew about this from Facebook, or you'd read about it on Facebook. And she said, yeah. And they were like, well, what did you read about it on Facebook? And she said, oh, I read that Jake and Angela said they did it and George had nothing to do with it. So I was like, oh, she's going to totally, the defense wants her. And so she made it on the jury. I was surprised the state, I mean, she seemed very like open-minded. So maybe that's why the state let her come through too. But part of me is like, maybe somebody like her is going to look at this and hear that and think maybe he didn't know. And maybe, you know, maybe he knew after the fact, but I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's so hard to conceive though, because, and I don't believe him. I do believe he knew before, during, and after. And I do probably think he was there. I think getting him on the stand was a Hail Mary for the defense that, you know, George caught the ball a little bit. And I hate to think about what the Roden and the Gilly families are feeling right now, because you just, you know, you lose one family member, the dynamics change, you grow around your grief, you know, life's never the same, but 8 in one night, it's like,
Yeah.
I can't fathom what these
Right.
poor people have lived every minute. It's not like they'll ever go a day where it's normal. They're, you know, I mean, half their family's gone. So it, you know, it makes me really sad for them, you know, but then again, this jury can use their common sense and say, you know, yeah, but he was paranoid, but he was raised to be paranoid. He was raised to question everything with law enforcement and how to get around it. So I wasn't super surprised on the wiretaps that he had that rant. And
Yeah.
you know, but then if you notice, like I've watched it twice, if you watch when Parker's questioning him, it is just, you know, super fast. And it wasn't a big difference when he was on cross, but it was a lot more, like you said, Biggie, I don't know. I don't recall. And it's like, how do you not recall talking to BCI in like probably the scariest moment of your life when you're getting pulled at the border? So maybe the jury see through that, and then we get justice for the Rodens and Hannah Gilly. I just, but one thing I wanted to ask you, Mr. Morgan, is how do you go into 4 different crime scenes and leave no DNA? I mean, were they just that good at covering their crime? I mean, you would think, like you said, these are bloody, violent blood scenes.
Yeah, they are. And when they would have walked out, I mean, as evidenced, I think in a couple of the shoe print images that we saw, you're gonna be contaminated. And the question is, what did you leave behind? Were they that well prepared with an extra change of clothes? Were their hands covered? You know, from what I understand, they, you know, there's not much hair or fiber, you know, that they were able to harvest out of the scene. So that goes to preparation. That's one of the things we've talked about, you know, for a couple of years now, is this from a logistical and execution sense. And I mean that from the perspective of sitting around and planning this thing at the kitchen table and knowing to a certain degree where everybody is supposed to be like clockwork. That's why it's really hard to swallow the idea that George did not have some kind of pre-knowledge here. Yeah, he says that, you know, he's not part of the family. He's, you know, removed himself from the family, this sort of thing. But when you're talking about, and this is an operation, when you're talking about an operation like this, and you're planning out routes, you're purchasing vehicles, you're acquiring all of the tools that are required, you have to think that they have covered their tracks to a great degree. Now, are they sophisticated enough to understand how to avoid leaving DNA behind? And that's key. You know, I think I really thought that there may have been a tussle at some point in time where you might have had commingling of blood or something like that, and nothing ever pointed to that. You know, in all of the bloody mess that they had, and they were not able to recover anything, within that intimate space, for instance, like in the bedroom where you're up close and personal and you're pulling that trigger, you're within a breath away from these individuals. And again, when you do this stealthily, you have that advantage under cover of darkness. You've disabled things that are there, and you've defeated any kind of, security system or whatever the case might be. You've even thought to, disarm any kind of cameras as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of thought went into this, I think. I'm not saying that they are the ultimate, criminal minds here, but, in this sense, it would appear that they avoided one of the biggest traps because there is no DNA.
Yeah.
And I don't care how you slice it. You can't go back and say, well, you missed something. That cow's out of the barn at this time.
Mhm.
It's gone. You can't go back and do that. And, they had a lot of resources at their disposal. Hell, they were so thoughtful about it, that they were going to retain those trailers, back at that storage facility. They didn't lock the gate,
Oh, wow.
but
Oh yeah, I
They thought-
remember that. Yeah, and
they
it wasn't
thought enough.
guarded. Like
No,
the
it
gate was
wasn't.
open and nobody was there watching it.
Yeah, I saw an image of the chain just kind of hanging
Yeah.
there, and you can see the trailers off in the distance. So, there's preparedness that takes place on both sides. That never came up, but
Mhm.
that's significant here, I think, to a great degree.
Yeah.
And they utilized all the tools at their disposal as best we can tell. And it's easy for people in my position, I guess, to go back and Monday morning quarterback, and that's not my intention. I've in all of the death cases I've worked over my career, I've never had a case like that. And all of my colleagues that I've discussed this with over the years, they've never had anything like this. And we've all worked in big metropolitan areas. You begin to think about these people are out in a rural area, probably one of the more rural areas east of the Mississippi River, isolated. And they thought, the perpetrators thought apparently this out very well before they did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
And
go
it's-
ahead, Biggie.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I have a little delay here, so I apologize. Go ahead.
I was just going to say it's something that has just been so mind-boggling to me is you have a 6'6", 300-pound man who is not. There's nothing in any of those scenes of him, and he based the day that they were going to do it on the weather. And Jake said when he was on the stand that by the time they got to Dana's the second time that it was thundering and raining. Now I don't know how they all three went in that house and left nothing. It's mind-boggling.
I've never necessarily bought into the idea that there were three in the house. I think, because we're talking about, as we say in the South, trailer houses, they're
Right.
you've got limited space. You're talking about big individuals. Jake, not so much, but you look at George, you look at Billy, and how well can you move in that environment, particularly when they got to, when they hit Chris Sr.'s house, because they didn't know what they were walking into. You look at the trajectory of those rounds when they sprayed that house. That was quite fascinating. And they ran a risk there because that's a high powered weapon. It could have been heard. I've been down that road up there. I've seen those locations, and yeah, I mean, it's kind of far apart, I guess, to a great degree. However, it's not so far apart that that people wouldn't hear the report of an SKS going off repeated times, perhaps. And then, of course, if the the 22 is suppressed, you're really not going to be able to pick up on that. But that SKS is rather robust.
I think too, for me, when I've been a little nervous since George took the stand, I do think Jake was very detailed. I don't know why Jake would have any reason at this point, though, to lie about George and he was so detailed about it. I think maybe that could be the saving grace of the state is even though Jake is an admitted murderer of 5 and shot 6, and you got Angela, I think it speaks volumes too that a mother gets on the stand, even though she got a deal where if she makes it to 84, she walks out. Their stories really did line up. And so I think maybe the jury just goes back there and you kind of use that if you've got 1 or 2 that are doubting, because I just don't think Jake has the mental capacity to make that detailed stuff up. To me, that's kind of my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they knew it,
Yeah, for sure.
and I mean, and George was very good on the stand. So it's just who's the jury going to believe? Are they going to believe?
That's really what it boils down to. They're going to have to go in there because they don't have a bunch of DNA reports to look over, and juries like DNA. They like forensic evidence because it makes their job a lot easier. Puts you there at the crime scene, and there's so a lot of people have been. I've seen a lot of infighting of people who say, well, I mean, it's and for me, when I say it could be a hung jury, it's not because I don't think that he did it. It's just when they instruct the jury, can you really say beyond a reasonable doubt, especially after just no hard evidence against him that he should spend his life in prison? That's my worry, and it's just being realistic.
You know what I've been wondering too, now that you say that, because I was just saying this to somebody earlier tonight, that they keep arguing over 2,000 exhibits and all these photos and, God knows what, but it's probably going to come down to who do they believe, Jake and Angela or George. So you've got like 2 against 1. But I think there's a jury instruction the judge can give, and the defense may request it. I'm trying to look it up online right now, like where you're supposed to view the testimony of a co-defendant, or you can view it with suspicion and things like that. So I'm wondering if they'll have some sort of jury instruction about that, because I've heard that type of thing before.
Yeah, I mean, I think the defense is definitely going to point out that, Jake and Angela got deals where you admit to killing 5 people in one night, shooting 6, and being on board with all 8, and you're not getting the death penalty. I mean, it's like Parker said, you got the best plea deal in the state of, in the history of Ohio. And he really did. I mean, you see people get sentenced to death for 1 murder. I mean, you've got multiple where you go in and half of them are asleep. It's just very egregious stuff. You've got babies in the bed. And, but at what point is it that maybe the state saw they didn't have anything? And so that's really was their only hope, was to pull Jake in and say, what was your brother's role? What did he know? What did he do?
But do you guys agree that wouldn't it have been better had they played that for the jury?
Played the tape at the border?
Played his proffer.
Oh, yeah.
But I don't think they can do that.
Yeah. I mean, it would have been nice.
I don't think they can play the proffer. I think they have to put him on the stand and have him talk. I think it would have been better if Parker, when crossing him, would have had that chopped up and edited. Like he would have had it and used, if he would have had it laid out and mapped out. And I'm sure to an extent his cross was mapped out, but then had specific things that he wanted to ask Jake about and then play the clip, if there was a difference. So I was surprised that we didn't see that in this trial, because why wouldn't you do that? I was kind of thinking about that.
Yeah. So who do you guys, I guess Canepa is going to do these closings? Is that?
I mean, she did the opening.
I'm assuming so, because really the only thing Andy did was the evidence people. So
yeah.
Yeah, in for a penny, in for a pound, I think, as far as she's concerned. I think that she's the one that's going to stand up there. I think that there would be a lack of continuity demonstrated to the jury if she did. They would begin to say, why isn't she talking to us? I think that would be certainly damaging.
Yeah. Well, I think too, I respect her. She has dedicated 6 long years of her life to this case and justice for the Rodens and the Gilly family. So I don't know. I just felt like the case just didn't gel, didn't come together into this big aha moment that jury might need. But I don't know. I think not. Do you think not moving it out of Pike County could contribute to an eventual conviction for him?
On appeal, you mean?
No, I mean, like, just the fact they didn't move the trial. I mean, it's not the
Oh,
hugest area in the world. I've always
no.
wondered why they didn't move that to a bigger city in Ohio.
Yeah. They should have done that from the rip.
Yeah. So I'm trying to look at some questions here from the listeners, and everybody's just like, why no rebuttal? Yeah, I just don't get it. One thing too is you talked about the footprints and not knowing the sizes. People are asking, like, why didn't she buy 3 pairs? But Billy was like 6'6". I'm sure Walmart did not carry his size clodhoppers that he wore. So yeah.
And Billy had to be Billy when he walked into Chris Senior's.
Right. Yeah.
He couldn't go in with a bunch of goofy stuff on.
Yeah.
I still don't understand why we didn't hear testimony about what size shoe George wears, since they had the foam impressions. I'm just at a loss for that.
Right. Yeah. Because like you go back to it, the 2 things we've heard all along, this was about custody, where apparently it wasn't. 8 people were murdered for people's paranoia and them convincing themselves that something might happen. And so that's an excuse. And then you find out custody, it kind of goes hand in hand with that. And then the shoes, and then it's just, yeah. And I want to know Angela's shoe size, really. Size does she wear?
I think that anytime, you have a prosecutor that is avoiding bringing up a topic as specific as say footwear from a forensics perspective, most of the time that's an indication that that's an area they don't want to explore, because they'll open up the door. Maybe they just didn't feel comfortable with it. And isn't that kind of interesting, the way we started this chat out, that that they invested so much, not just financially, but they really, I think at least, they've when you're talking about forensics, this is the area they really wanted to dance in. They wanted to bring this highfalutin expert in, and he did an admirable job. He stayed where forensic scientists should, right down the middle. He gave them honest answers. But if they didn't explore that or probe it at all, many times that's an indication they don't feel comfortable with the evidence, and that might explain it. Don't know.
It's a good point.
Great point. Yeah.
I got sick of hearing about the shoes, and other people told me that too. Like, I felt like the shoes, I think it's cool and interesting because of the way they found it, with getting the records, the subpoena and all that stuff. How they got the surveillance footage from all the different Walmarts based on, whatever they did from a 50-mile radius or whatever.
Right.
But after a while, I just was like, could we just enough with the shoes? Like, I know Angela said she bought them and George wore them, and she said that George said he left one of the footprints, which I don't know if I don't know.
No, I agree completely. It's like one of these moments in time where you say, God bless, go in peace. You've said all that you need to say about it. And when you start to beat this thing to death, it's an indication. Again, I go back to, this is the evidence that they had. This is where, they wanted to push all the chips in this area. That's just my impression relative to this. No pun intended. But that's the area that they wanted to explore, and they wanted to capture the jury's attention with it. They couldn't dazzle them with DNA. We'll dazzle them with shoe prints.
But I still don't know what size he wears.
And
yeah, touche.
and that's one of the main areas that I was talking about, Joe Scott, and just like Angenette said, they didn't want to hear about shoes anymore. They had been browbeat with it for so long, and then they would jump to a different topic, and then the next week they would have another shoe person come back on.
Mm-hmm.
And the jurors were just like, I mean, they have to be thinking, what are we doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there were a lot of things kind of left open-ended to me. I think ultimately, this is a good question. Why didn't either side ask George why his own mother would implicate him if he was innocent? And that, to me, I think that's going to be where that jury uses their common sense and says, okay, these two haven't seen each other in 4 years. They haven't communicated, meaning Jake and Angela, and they pretty much told the same story of how everything went down. And so at the end of the day, maybe you don't, it'd been nice to have some DNA, but at the same time, for George to say, I wanted to get away, and then I'm moving to Alaska, and with you guys, I'm, gonna move to Missouri without you. I don't think he ever would have, because he texted that Josie girl, a couple of months before he was arrested, and said, I'm very close with my family, and that might freak people out. So I think Canepa did a good job in poking holes in this whole I want to get away theory that he presented as. I was never really one of them after I got my driver's license, but everything we've seen, so I think things like that will make a difference during deliberations. Those
I think,
little
I
things.
think that it will.
Mhm.
But here's the rub, as they say. Again, I have to remind everybody, all they have to do is get one juror.
Yep.
And
Oh, I
that's
know.
essentially what it comes down to. And they plant that seed of reasonable doubt. I've seen this happen many times, over the years. And that's, I know that people are wary of this jury and what they're, and you have to kind of measure that and say, well, are they, after all this time, are they still are they still fresh in their memory, as far as their perception and what they've heard? Is it, where did they pick up on the subtleties here?
Mhm.
The relationship that Angela had with Jake, certainly, I think he's a fair haired child for her, as opposed to that relationship she had with George, and that, again, if there's one person on that jury, it can create a problem. I mean, maybe, maybe not guilty, but you could wind up with a hung jury, which nobody wants to hear about, but
Right.
that's the reality of these cases.
Yeah. No, and I do agree. I never thought I would even think hung jury in this case until a few days ago. Then
Yeah.
after about 2-3 hours of him on the stand, I thought we could, man, I mean, this was a gutsy move to put him up there, and it might have paid off.
And it worked for the
Yeah.
defense. I mean,
Can you imagine Angela and Jake if George even gets a hung jury? Can you imagine what I mean, yeah.
well,
Well, I think Jake would want George to go home. He said that.
oh yeah, he did. He did. Let me mention this again, GG. We factually, it is not on the record of who even drug the two bodies back to the bedroom.
Right.
The only person who said that George and Billy did that is Angela Canepa in her opening statement.
Yeah, there's no testimony.
There is
Yeah.
no testimony that George even drug the bodies back there.
Mhm.
We've just heard all this suggestion. It's like a suggestion that Billy couldn't have done it because he broke his back or something. It's
Yeah.
been like implied that Billy couldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And that George, and they heard, what did Chris Newcomb said, that George was as strong as a bull ox or whatever.
Yeah.
So there's all these, like, it's like implied that George had to have done it, but
Mhm.
we don't know.
Yeah. No, it's
Yeah,
I
and
know, yeah.
that would have been an interesting area to explore further, because for me, from an image standpoint and a crime scene image, I don't know that there was really too many things that really stick in my mind the way those drag marks do, and you
Right.
can
Right.
kind of see the swirls and that those trace elements of those bodies being pulled, and and that needs, and I think that they probably did a sufficient job of talking about the mechanics of it, how that would, how that comes about. That the one BCI agent early on, forgive me, it's been weeks now, I can't remember his name, but the first guy that was up there, and he spoke to that, he spoke to that greatly, and I thought he was a fine witness. And that's something I think that the jury, because it was so graphic, it was a real tell here, because there's not many other things that give you that kind of animate the scene like you have when you have that displayed. Where you can say, you can see here where there has been postmortem movement of the body. This is the blood that has stained this area. And this is what it looks like, when you're dragging a body, when you're manipulating a body after death and placing them back in that room. And so, yeah, I think people want to know, people want to know who placed those bodies back there. Certainly a powerful piece of evidence.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and this was one thing too. George's last comment about people who do this should get death was powerful and about knocked Angela Canepa off her feet. She almost had like a physical reaction when he said that, because she was trying to say, what would happen to you? And she asked twice, and he still answered it as if he's talking in the third person, like he's not even a defendant. And she kind of moved a little bit, and then there was like a 5-6 second pause where she just didn't really know, I don't think, how to recover from that. And that was a very powerful way for him to pretty much end his cross exam.
Yeah.
It really was.
I mean, people get upset when we sit and talk about this and like the kind of just the facts of it and really the reality of how court cases work. And there's the vigilante justice of, we're not all stupid. It's really far-fetched to think he knew nothing. But at the end of the day, you got to look at court cases from an evidence standpoint. That's what you put people in prison on, not just a bunch of coincidental evidence with two people who pled guilty saying you did it. So, yeah, because I've seen a couple of comments where people are, it's just kind of the reality of it. And this is just such a weak case at this point for me. It's just like, wow, I really was expecting something big at some point.
I think we all were, to tell the truth. And maybe the biggest story here, the biggest story is the lack of that, that big crescendo. I think that everybody was desiring. Listen, this is going to impact this community for years to come. I've made comments on other podcasts and stuff. This is the type of case, forgive me if I wax poetic just for a second, but this is the kind of case that 80 years from now, those kids that inhabit that area up there, they're going to tell ghost stories about.
Mm-hmm.
That's how, and that's a real measure of something when that passes down through, community's ability to tell stories. That this place is scarred now, and it's going to take a long time for them to get past this. This is something that will just inhabit this world for them, and people want answers. I think people want justice in this case. I'm just, boy, I tell you what, I just don't know. I just don't know.
And that's the problem that we're all looking at right now is we're 10 plus weeks into this trial and we all have doubt. And we have doubt.
I don't know that I have doubt. I just have doubt about the lack of evidence. I mean, how is that? I mean, ultimately, that's my biggest thing. I'm not naive enough to think George just never knew nothing. It's just not possible with how these people were, how they were raised from very young children, to think that he's not going to overhear something, or when his mom's scratching his back every night and asking how his day went, like she don't slip up and say, "Oh, I got you some shoes for the, I got your brother some shoes for the murder." I'm not that naive, but I do agree. And above all, the Rodens and the Gilley family need justice. And, you've got Jake and Angela that will never really probably breathe free. I mean, what's Angela going to do at 84 when she gets out? I mean,
I don't think she'll get out.
No, I mean, it's life expectancy in jail.
Yeah,
prison is lower.
hard.
And, on the wiretap, she said, it's a battle every day in there. Yeah. So, but, well, Mr. Morgan, I know you are going on News Nation to talk about the quadruple murder up in Ohio. So,
Idaho. Yeah.
Or Idaho. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Let's don't have another one in Ohio.
No. I got Ohio on the brain.
Yeah. No, I
All
understand
these O's.
completely. I'm so confused right now, between this and the Debbie Collier case and everything else. I've been running from one thing to another, but can I please say humbly It means so much to me that you guys would even consider inviting me. I'm a big fan of y'all's.
Oh, you're the best.
Please have me back. I'll be more than happy to chat with you guys, and maybe we'll have had a bit more rest
Yeah.
going. But I would like to take this time to wish everybody a very, very happy Thanksgiving. We've all got a lot to be thankful for.
Yes, we
And
do.
Yes,
I know
we
I
do.
certainly do. And I'm thankful for y'all, and I appreciate you guys
Appreciate you,
having me.
man. You're
It
the
was an honor.
best. You're
Yes,
welcome
ma'am.
back anytime. Kathy Rustin said, wait, girl, you got to warn me when you have my best friends on.
Oh
Hey,
Lord,
Kathy.
I'm going to send her. I'm going to Venmo her a 20 for that.
There you go. See? Yep. All right. Thank you, Mr. Morgan. We
Yes, ma'am.
appreciate you.
See y'all down the trail. All right, y'all.
Yep. Happy
Bye-bye.
trails to you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Can I ask you guys a question?
Yeah.
Ask me a
So-
thousand.
So I found sometimes during the cross yesterday of George, I was kind of like, where are we? I don't know. I was kind of wondering where we were going with certain things. And one of the things that somebody pointed out to me was that George, I guess, said in Montana that they went to bed that night at like 12:30, the night before the murders or whatever, or that morning. They had watched a fairy movie and Angela made cheeseburgers or something. And he was in bed at like 12:30 or something like that. But then on the stand, he said he was in bed at 10:30.
Mhm.
Did you guys think how much significance did you give that?
I mean, it's a big discrepancy. It's 2 hours when you're talking about murders happening overnight and you're oblivious. No, I do think because he tried to sort of backtrack, at least the way I heard it was he said that when Vine got hyped up, it took him till about 12:30 to fall asleep. But normally he went to bed hours earlier, which I kind of thought was 10. But it doesn't make sense. We know that they talked about the alibi. I mean, we
Right.
have proof of that. So, and that involved all of them. If George didn't know, he would have said, what alibi? What are you talking about?
Yeah, in
Right.
the movie, like Jake and Angela, I guess, forgot the movie, right? Wasn't that
Yeah.
testimony earlier?
If they would have agreed on Boondock Saints, Jake would not have forgotten.
For real.
Yeah, he would have got that right. But no, I do. There were discrepancies in some of George's stuff of just it can't be that far off from what Jake testified to. You know what I'm saying? It just
Mhm.
you got two people who, unless Jake and Angela got together before they got arrested and said, "Hey, look, this is our story, you and me." Otherwise, they're telling the truth. I think jurors are smart enough to kind of say, I mean, Jake, very matter of factly, from what I hear, we heard the snippet, but you guys heard all of it. But I mean, it's like, I don't think he missed a beat either when he was testifying, right? He didn't seem, long
Ja-
pauses,
No, Jake was straight laced, ice cold. There was now when he didn't hear a question or understand the question. I mean, he spoke really well. It shocked me.
Mhm.
He spoke,
Yeah, he was more well spoken than I anticipated.
yeah, and if he didn't understand the question, he would ask him, could you please ask me that again, or I don't understand what you're asking, or anything like that. But Jake, it was the same. It was the most emotional person on that stand out of those three was Angela. And that might be for obvious reasons, but Angela, or I'm sorry, but Jake and George were just straight down the middle, baby. I mean, didn't miss a beat, wasn't hesitant with
Mhm.
questions. There wasn't long pauses or anything. I mean, that's one, that was my take on him.
Kathy has a message. Okay, Kathy says, I don't want to go on camera. I just want to say, come
Tell
on,
her to get
Kathy.
on here.
Even if you got your little coffee PJs on, we'll take you. She said, I just want to say that this is the worst prosecuted trial I've ever witnessed and the most horrific crime. And these two together is a real shame.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's a
I-
good point. We had
Nice
a
to
few
see.
comments of people who are like, I'm leaving. I have justice for the victims. And it's, I mean, it's hard because I don't like saying that I think maybe this is going to be a hung jury, but it's just the reality of where we are.
Yeah. And
And
that's
you
kind
said,
of,
but then what do you think about like the jury dynamic, Angenette? I mean, you've got what, 9 women on that jury?
9 women and 3 men.
Yeah. I mean, so if they don't like men who call women something that rhymes with Moors, then he's a goner. You know what I'm saying? But then do you
Yeah.
get and Big E said that they seem more on the younger side.
yeah,
Let me think about that. Yeah.
there's at least 3, and I would even go up to 4 that haven't broke 30 years old yet.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. There are some younger ones. There's a lady up top with, she has kind of like white hair, and I don't want to give too much of a description since it's a
Yeah.
small county, but
Right.
yeah, there are some younger people on that jury. You're right.
And you kind of wonder, does that change anything for George? Is it going to be kind of it could go one way or the other for George, really kind of well, he's younger and man, he was raised by some really messed up people, but they saw some side of George. The thing that stuck out to me too was when George said on the stand about how did it make you feel that your mom testified against you? And he's whatever he said. And then he said, especially given the fact she wouldn't look at me.
Right. I saw that.
Like that was, but I think going back and watching a second time, George is very, very bitter about a lot of things in his childhood. And a lot of it has to do with that favoritism over Jake.
And the truck.
And the truck. I mean, he was just like still a sore spot with me, and he was 30 something years old. And that happened when he was 15. So I think what you have there is probably, but then that's where I start to think when you have a younger jury, do you have one person kind of near his age who maybe wasn't the favorite, always got like the short end of the stick with the other siblings that kind of, there's so many, because these are like Mr. Morgan said, these are just everyday people. They don't have forensic degrees. They're going on like their smarts, what they have up here, what they see, and then their common sense. I just feel like, it could go either way with having a younger jury, because either they see George as, and I don't see him as a victim, but maybe just more compassion than maybe they would have had a week ago had he not taken the stand. Because if you look at George, I told Big E, Jake was always happy to be in there. I think Jake is thriving in jail. I think he's away from his family. He's got his own thing going.
Pastor Jake.
Yeah. Pastor Jake, Pastor Wagner. And then you've got George who, like Billy, just always looks ticked off. And to me, that's just kind of the vibe I get. And then you've got Angela who just looks like, poor me, I got caught. And I'm not raising those kids every day. That's, this woman on the wiretaps, what hormones, Jake? And then you've got her barely audible when she's answering the judge at every hearing.
Right.
So for George, I think it's kind of one of those, for me, it was a lesson of don't judge a book by its cover, because I thought he was going to get up there and just be snarky. And he got up there, like you said, with that soft voice, kind of just told it directly. But if he had never taken the stand, he just looks like somebody who's over there kind of almost looking evil at times, just with the way he always kind of had that look on his face. Like he, wanted to shoot lasers out of his eye.
If he would have just softened up a little bit while he was sitting there at his table for the last 10 weeks, maybe that would have made the jury feel just a little bit different before he even took the stand. But he sat there like a stone cold killer, just mad at the world. And
don't you think they probably told him to do that though? Like, I mean, his defense attorneys, like, they coached him on how to act in court, because he used to look a lot more mad in the very beginning when he first got arrested. If you go back and look at those hearings.
Yeah, I did that just recently.
And he was always doing this. Like, he was Mr. Fidgety. He's stopped with the fidgeting. He used to fidget constantly.
Yeah, it's just such a, I mean, I think other than Lori and Chad Daybell, this is the most complex case in a lot of ways that I've ever covered. I mean, just with all the moving parts, all the victims and just everything. And yeah, But was there anything that you guys learned during the course of the trial that from Jake or Angela that blew you away that you didn't know until they testified to it?
I didn't know. I knew she was in the Air Force. I didn't know she had been sexually assaulted.
Yeah. Yeah, that was interesting. I didn't know either.
There were a handful of bombshells that were, or at least, that were new to me, and I wished that they would have talked about it more with Jake. Was about when Billy come out, he asked Jake to shoot him. That was a bombshell. That was new to me.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have Angela come on the next week, and confirms that she was afraid that Billy was going to take his life.
Mm-hmm.
So, that was a bombshell for me. There's some other ones that have just slipped my mind for the second, but yeah, there were things that I learned that, I had no clue about.
Yeah, I would have pictured Billy as being the one calming the boys down. And then you find out it's the opposite. It's
Jake.
Right. No, it's true. But Chris Newcomb said when he testified that George is all bark. I'm sorry, Billy's all bark, no bite.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you see that in Jake's testimony when he's running out. I just shot my best friend. Well, yeah, you shot the heck out of your best friend. And and then so that was big for me too. That was what. Let's see. Kathy's still going, y'all. She said, we have witnessed multiple defendants that testify that are able to humanize themselves to the jury. Now, in most cases, that's to avoid the death penalty. But in this case, it could be different. Jurors have a hard time if they can see the defendant as a human being. And that's kind of my point of why I think putting him on the stand was the best thing they could have done. Because you see sort of a wounded man that has had the craziest upbringing. I don't think I've heard of some crazy upbringings, and they're in their own right. They're unique, but this is such a bizarre setup for this family. But that's my thing, is humanizing him, especially if you have younger jurors.
Yeah.
And I agree with him. It only takes one. I never would have thought for 6 years covering really the first 3, just reading about it, because I didn't do this at that time, but I never would have thought in the last days of the trial, I would say, oh man, there might be a hung jury on this, just blows my mind. Cause
that's what I was alluding to earlier. Obviously I had the bar set too high. I just figured it would be a slam dunk case.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that sometime weeks ago, and Angenette, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but they said there was 13 terabytes of discovery.
I don't remember if it was 13, but we've heard from the very beginning, whenever there were so many discussions and pretrial hearings about discovery and the defense saying they weren't getting what the other defendants were getting. And I mean, it was at least at one point, I think 6 terabytes. So if you think that they have all of these interviews recordings and wiretaps of George, I think, they've said hundreds of hours, if not thousands, then that takes up a lot of space. So,
And I just assumed that, all that stuff would be, heard by, for the jury to hear. And hell, we didn't even get to see Angela shopping in Walmart.
Yeah, I was wondering, I don't understand why we didn't get to see. I mean, if we've got the screenshot of her walking out, I would think we have the actual video, right?
Yeah, you would think so. Yeah.
It's Walmart. Walmart has really good security, from what I understand. Aren't they one of the largest retailers in the country? So I feel like I go into the Walmart and I scan my groceries myself, or whatever I'm buying, and like there's a really good picture of me right there in front of my face at the self-checkout line. So they have good stuff there. So, and why they had to have had her at the cash register, right? I mean, maybe they just think, oh, I don't care, I don't need it. But I think juries like visuals, and I just feel like we haven't had that many visuals in this case. I mean, we've had awful gory crime scene photos and autopsy photos. We haven't shown that stuff on the air, but you know what I mean? I just think anytime you can show a visual,
Yeah.
not just
Yeah.
a screen grab. You know, I
I
think it's
I just
good.
think that, you know, you have to tell a story and it has to flow. And
Yeah, exactly.
there was no rhythm or flow in this presentation. One week we would talk about phones, and one week we would talk about shoes. One week we would talk about the interviews in Montana, and the next week we'd come back and we'll talk about phones. I mean, and
Mhm.
it was just jump here, jump there. There was
Mhm.
nothing fluid about it. And I agree with Angenette 1000%, man. I just think that jurors, they want to see stuff. I think that's how you keep them, engaged. They want to see interviews. They took a screenshot of Jake with his hair dyed sitting there in that interview room. We never seen that video.
Yeah, and I have that picture too somewhere of Jake and George feeding the pigs. Have y'all seen that one
Yes,
where
off
yeah,
the
and I mean
Defiance Farms Facebook.
his
Yeah.
hair is like coal black. And you said,
I think he screwed up on that in his cross, like
yeah,
denying that he dyed his hair. I mean, first of
yeah.
all, I don't think they've introduced any photos of George with his hair dyed,
And it's literally on the
which is
internet for all
weird.
to see. On
Yeah.
if you go to Defiance Farms on Facebook, towards the bottom. Now there's a few Defiance Farms Facebook, so don't go haterating on some poor family in Colorado. But if you scroll down, you see the kids out running and things like that. But
Yeah.
here's George and Jake feeding the pigs. George's hair is like it's like he took black shoe polish and just
Yeah.
did this.
Yeah.
And why
Why
not
would you not
admit
throw
to
that up
it?
there?
Jake said that he dyed his hair. He didn't dye it because of the homicides. And then the prosecution said, well, they said they didn't believe him. They told him that during his direct. But George, just say you guys, like, I don't get it. Like, why just admit it? You dyed your hair.
Yeah, just say, hey, we got really drunk one night and got a dumb idea.
Stupid. Yeah. Like,
Yeah, some kind of but then at the same time, why would she not put that picture up on the screen? It's like,
yeah, I don't get that because it's
yeah,
the perfect visual to put up
right.
there.
You're
Like,
gonna say
really? That's like
you
you're
didn't yeah.
because I have that picture in my Mary Poppins Dropbox. You know,
Yep, there you
like,
go. Yeah,
I've had that in there for years, not because I knew they dyed their hair, but just because
yeah.
I took a bunch of screen grabs years ago.
Yeah, and I mean, you also have family members like Michelle just said. You have family members saying they made fun of them, and then Samantha, who testified, who
Yeah.
dated Frankie for all she's like, I saw him, they had died here. I'm like, what were y'all doing? So you've got friends and family who were on the stand saying, you both dyed your hair, you look ridiculous. We made fun of you.
Yeah, I don't know why he did
And then
that.
George's like, I didn't dye my hair.
He could have just said, I mean, I don't know if they're so afraid of it being like, oh, look, they were really trying to look like those brothers in Boondock Saints. And don't even get me started on the Boondock Saints stuff. But,
Yeah.
you know, were they really that worried about it? Because then he said his favorite movies were Across the Great Divide and Jeremiah Johnson or something like that. And I'm just like,
Oh, I had to Google it, girl.
yeah. But I'm just like, were they that worried that, oh my God, they were going to really think they were trying to look like those two brothers, the Irish twins in the movie? I mean, really? I mean, just say you guys are dumb and dyed your hair. I mean,
Yeah, I mean,
it is bizarre, but
it's really bizarre. I'm trying to pull up this picture right now and throw it up here of him for the viewers that haven't seen it. I thought probably okay, so I do have the one with Jake. You know, and I thought too the one day that we did, and I think we talked about this on the last one, where it's like a whole day of the search warrant on Flying W with 0 pieces of evidence coming out of that.
They've stipulated to that. I mean, their whole thing is that, I mean, the guns, we searched the Flying W and we have a stipulation that we looked at all these guns and none of them were involved. Like, why? The defense was looking to stipulate, I guess, in the beginning to all these shoe. Remember that? Do you remember that when we were there with Billy Morgan and stuff, and the defense wanted to stipulate to, you know, you don't have to open the bag. We get it. We stipulate it's not his shoes. And Angie Canepa insisted on taking the shoes out to show them to the jury, the treads. And I'm just like, yeah, why did we have to go through all of that?
Right.
I don't get it.
Kathy wants to come on. I'm going to send her a link.
Well, and And Joe Scott, he actually, and I wouldn't expect anything different, but he made me a little bit smarter when he said that if they don't go somewhere where there's evidence, if they don't want to go deep with it, they're not confident with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's the thing which is for me too, the BCI tapes. It's like you have that comment that the defense has made, which is, do you want to be a witness or do you want to be a defendant? Is it that maybe on that BCI tape the whole time they're like, hey, we don't think you did anything. We need you to cooperate. Why would they ask him to spy on his brother if they thought he was in the middle of it?
And why did we not hear any follow-up about that? Like, is that true? I mean, if it's true, like, why didn't we hear any rebuttal? I mean, I don't know if that's true or not. I mean, I know it's what George said, but here's the deal too. Like, I don't get why they didn't play it, because even if he doesn't testify, there's got to be something on that interview. You know what I mean? There's got to be.
There has to be.
And I just don't understand why you don't contrast it with the wiretaps. Like, when he does it, when he suspects somebody's listening on a wiretap, this is what he sounds like. And he's saying, he wants to bend Scheiterer over, or whatever it was he said. He's making some pretty icky comments, and wants to kill him or whatever. And I still don't. I'm just kind of like, they got so hung up on that. And I'm like, I'm sure that's very upsetting to the prosecution team and to Ryan Scheiterer. But I mean, does the jury really care? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So, and I just don't understand why they didn't play the Montana interview. He's taught, their whole thing was like, he's taught from a young age to be a criminal. And Jake testified to how they were taught when, the cops stop them, be kind and be this and behave and don't raise your voice. And then we get them on the wiretaps on the caffeine or whatever. I just don't get why they didn't play that to show the juxtaposition. And so we could hear what he was saying on there.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's what everybody is talking about right now is a lot of her cross-exam was trying to poke holes in the wiretaps, but we never saw them. So
my other thing too is, if this thing about the fairy movie was so important, if that whole thing, like, because Jake and Angela couldn't remember the movie or what have you, like, why can't we hear George talking about the alibi is the fairy movie and the cheeseburgers? I just think there's so many. And I'm not a prosecutor, right? I cover these cases, but I've seen cases where a defendant, they play the defendant's interview. This is what they said. Even if they deny it, even if it's full of denials, they play it.
Yeah.
So it just makes me think either there's something that's not so great on there, or, I don't know. All right. So I have these pictures now, guys. All right. So I'm gonna throw these up on the screen. This is on the left is like a week after the murders. So you see George there on the left feeding the pig.
See, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
Yep. And then you've got Jake. He's got a hat on, but I can't zoom in on here, but if you zoom in on your computer, it's the same color as George's. I mean, look, maybe look, you've got his family and his friends saying you dyed your hair. It's not really a question. Kathy is here. All right. And then I was going to show you this other one that I found, because I go and I find like little nuggets on social media, or go to the way back and get on their flipgrams. I don't know. You guys may have seen this one. Have y'all seen that picture?
I have not seen that.
I have.
Yeah.
I've seen another picture where they were together, where he wasn't upside down doing
like
that.
Spider-Man or something.
Kind of
But
like
I've seen
Spider-Man.
her pregnant with him before. I've seen those pictures.
Yeah. Anyways, I found those. I have more that came from, but Kathy, how are you?
Well, I had to come on because I told the chat that I wasn't going to come on because I'm just sitting here in my sweats, but they have to see that the sweatshirt is
Basically a detective. That's nice. Yeah.
and as Angenette and GiGi knows very well, I am basically a detective.
Yes, you are.
I just don't have any licensing for that.
Yep. You don't need it. Come on now. I've watched every episode of Forensic Files. I can nail the killer in the first 2 minutes. I'm like, he did it. And I'm right. Forensic Files 2, by the way, is a really good watch. Have you guys watched the Murdaugh? Just going off topic for a sec, the HBO special on that
No,
yet?
but everybody keeps
Not
telling me to watch
yet.
it.
Everyone tells Angenette and I to watch it. We talk about it in our daily editorial.
So good, y'all. So good. I cannot wait for that one to start. I'm gonna do the same thing with that trial that I'm doing with this, just daily throwing it together. I'm gonna try to go down actually, because it's only about 3 hours from here.
Well,
So-
girl, if you think the Daybell case is convoluted and you think the Pike County case is convoluted, dig into Alec Murdaugh.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
There's so many fingers in it that I haven't even gone there yet.
Yeah, they didn't hold back in that HBO documentary either. I mean, they pulled in the whole Stephen Smith thing, the housekeeper thing. There was all the rumors were put on that, and they actually had some new surveillance footage of the night of the boat crash that I'd never seen. So there's some new stuff in there. And then they didn't show his face, but they have Stephen's body in the roadway, and and then they tell the theory about what happened that night. It was just really good. So I don't know. You know me. I'm very ADHD, Kathy. I was like, oh, Murdaugh.
Oh, I know all about you.
Yeah. So what do you think, Kathy? I mean, what do you think is going to be? I mean, you can say right now.
Well, it's hard for me to have Angenette's the expert on this case.
Yes,
and that's because I can't possibly keep up with the nonsense of this case. That's the problem. Because they can opt out on camera, because a charged defendant for murder can opt out of testifying on camera when cameras are allowed in the trial, it's unbelievable to me. Like totally, completely unbelievable. And so once that happened, I was like, this is the most ridiculous case I've ever seen. I get you not allowing cameras, right? Don't allow them, fine. You allowed cameras. Now Ohio says every witness can sign a thing. We've done a ton of Ohio cases. We know how this goes. More times than not, they all agree to be on camera, but every single trial we've ever done in Ohio, if they opt out of being on camera, we have audio. Every single trial. We've never had a trial that didn't allow audio, ever.
Right.
Until the biggest case in Ohio history that cost taxpayers more than any other case in the history, and the judge allows, first of all, law enforcement to opt out of everything. Taxpayers pay their salary. They're part of their job is testifying in court. Why are we allowing that? But secondly, the people charged with murder in this case get to opt out, not only be on camera, but even audio. It's silence to the world. It makes me so angry. This case makes me so angry because it's horrific. And I don't think the public gets the grand scheme of how horrific this case is.
No,
Angenette and I can go off on tangents about this because I'm so invested in the case, and then I'm so disgusted by it because the public can't see it. And guess what? It's gone forever. It doesn't matter who appeals that. Jake and Angela's testimony is gone forever. Okay. They can say, oh, guess what? I killed 8 people. I destroyed an entire family unit, and nobody will ever know what I said. You know, I don't know.
I mean, I've been really, really upset by it because I just think that because the public, you know, there was so much interest in this case and an entire family was destroyed, wiped out in a matter of minutes. And I just feel like there's got to be, you know, the public should see what is going on in that courtroom. And I understand people like Bobby Joe Manley, who's, you know, kind of a very, from what I can see, a meek, quiet person who found the first bodies. I get that. Her opting out and not wanting, I would have liked to have at least had her audio, but I understand why she didn't want to be on camera, and she did a great job testifying. But I just think for the level of attention this case has received and the fact that a whole family was wiped out like that, and for this like order to come out where it's like audio and video, which we've never had before.
Mhm.
I'm just horrified by it. And I think that the public needed to see Jake and Angela get up there and face the music, and they were allowed to chicken out. I mean, that's what they did. They chickened out. They
Oh,
did that
100%.
because they could. And
100%.
I'm sorry that they say Jake feared for his safety. Well, guess what? What's the old saying? You can't do, you can't do the time, don't do the crime, or whatever. I mean, everybody's going to know who he is. And, then they throw this snitches get stitches stuff out there during the one hearing. And I'm like,
nonsense.
you know what? He'll be in protective custody. He's
Exactly.
going to be in protective
Why did
custody until they
Angie-
determine he's okay. And he didn't snitch on a drug gang. He snitched
Right.
on his family.
Why
Right.
does
He doesn't care about that in
Angie
prison.
care about Jake Wagner's safety? Why does she care about Jake Wagner's safety?
Yeah,
Well,
I've
she
never,
kinda
I've
was-
never, I've
Go
never
ahead, Gigi.
seen, I've never seen a prosecution argue about what happens to a person after they
Never.
go to prison. I have never seen that.
Never.
I mean-
And I've done hundreds of cases. Never does the snitch, the co-defendant that goes on the stand, never do they get the kind of red carpet treatment they've gotten from this prosecution. I just can't do this case. I'm so upset by this case. I'm glad we have Angenette on Law and Crime, because she has been dedicated from literally day one, before I even knew her, right? Because I'm checked out of this case. I'm so done with this case because of how the prosecution has handled it, and then how the judges handled it. It's really upsetting. I've seen pictures that people shouldn't see. There are babies involved here. There's a baby that was in bed with their parents when they were murdered. And then Jake goes on to say how he murders the mother of his child, and then he's worried about her newborn baby crying. So I think we should just put her up to the dead mom's breast to nurse. The case is horrific, absolutely horrific. And the fact that they don't want to show this on camera is so upsetting to me. It's so upsetting, because the public needs to know, and the people of the state of Ohio that are paying for this trial need to see this.
Mhm.
I don't know.
You guys want to take a guess at how much it's cost so far?
I can't.
I've heard defense attorney wise, like just for their public defenders, nearly $4 million.
Yeah, I have the paperwork. I got it a couple weeks ago, and it's not even up to date. And it's
Oh, wow.
like,
Yeah.
it's more than $3 million. Pike
Mhm.
County's poor. They
Yeah,
can't afford
exactly.
this.
You've got people there that kids are hungry in that area.
Yeah.
They're all over America,
It's one of the
but
poorest counties in Ohio. So back when this
Right.
happened, the lawmakers, the legislators out in Pike County went to the state and they put a bill together. It was especially for this case. It was like, if you're a county that doesn't have any money and you have a death penalty case with more than like one or two defendants, you can get this funding from the state to help take care of this, right?
House
So it
Bill
was like
85.
a little more than $1 million is what the state legislature, at the time allotted for this. They've blown through that. This is,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they were getting a discount because they have two trials that they don't have to have
Yeah.
in Jake and Angela. So apparently Parker, I don't think Parker has submitted an invoice for 6 months or something to that effect. So just get ready, because this is going to probably be around $5 million.
Okay,
Or-
let's be clear on something. This is what really upsets me. Ohio does have this law, right? They have the statute that witnesses can opt out. So that's what the judge is laying his hat on. And actually, the wording of it, he's probably correct.
right.
Judge before him allowed audio.
But every other, yeah, but I think that because
Angie Canepa got confessions from two killers in the worst mass murder that ever happened in that county. And she could have put in the plea deal that they had to testify on camera for the world to see what a great job she did by getting these confessions, right? She should have put it on display for the taxpayers.
Mhm.
And she chose not only not to say anything, but the opposite. Snitches get stitches. She does not want them on camera. And I don't know why. And it really upsets me, because It should be the opposite. She should say, you are killers. You are killers. You wiped out an entire family, and you're going to face the public on it.
You know, I've had several people that work in corrections in the state of Ohio say if they think pretty much every prisoner in this state do not know who the Wagners are,
Right.
you know, it's already out there. I mean, I
Right.
talked to like what 1, 2, 3, about 4 or 5 that just reached out to me on social media. Say, I work in the Department of Corrections. Like they're all taking bets on whether this Wagner is going to end up at their prison eventually.
Why
They
didn't
know
you
who
ask-
they
why
are.
didn't
They aren't
you ask
protecting
me?
them.
Why didn't
They
you ask me?
Oh yeah, you. That's
I
right.
worked in Lucasville for 11 years.
That's right. What do you think? I mean, really, that was kind of a bogus excuse.
He's going. All 4 will go straight to protective custody.
Right.
Mhm.
They're you know, and going back to what Kathy was saying a few minutes ago, what probably the maddest I've been when I was actually in the courtroom was when they let that officer get up on the stand and say all of that stuff about this is what happened to this brother whenever they was at this prison. You know, this one got. I'm sorry.
You know what made me mad about it, Eric, is the fact that they invoked Lucasville, a horrific event
Yeah.
in the Ohio's history. Kathy, in case you don't know, and GiGi,
I don't know.
okay, it was a prison riot where these prisoners literally, it was like the Aryan Brotherhood and all these people took over the prison. Horrific thing. And they invoked Lucasville when talking about the Wagners.
That's ridiculous.
It was disgusting. And I was offended because I worked there for 11 years. And Lucasville, you know, the saying is the North flushes their toilet and we get it down here at Lucasville. We get all the bad guys from all over the state.
Mm.
And what that guy portrayed whenever he was up on that stand shouldn't have been allowed to begin with, because, you know, he made Angela lay a 16 mansion foundation before she could ask a question. And he's going to let this officer, who literally Andy just walked out in the back
and got him. He was one of the guys guarding George.
Yeah, I need you to come in and testify for me. And it worked, and that's what they did.
But I think Judge Deering already knew what he was going to do. It was such a, you know, Judge Deering knew he was not going to rule. First of all, the whole thing was so convoluted. The judgment that was sent down for from the appellate court, it was just a mess. And then they have this show hearing, and I say that I think Judge Deering I think he's been very fair, and he's tried to be very conscientious, and he wants this to be a fair trial, and he wants it to be clean. But that whole thing of putting that guy Horton up there. And all those Star Team guys have been great. I think they're great. Like whenever I observe them, they seem
somebody told
amazing.
me
They are on top of it. And Jack Greiner got up there and he's like, "So, Mr. Horton, you know what you're doing, right?" And then, he's like, "Well, yeah, of course." And then Andy Wilson gets up there and asks something. It was like, I mean, of course they know what they're doing. They're trained. They're special operations people. They're trained to deal with threats. So I'm not sure there's going to be a prison riot where, everybody starts targeting the Wagners. The Wagners snitched on each other. They didn't snitch on, some gang dealing, whatever.
Look, I'm going to tell you why the Wagners get targeted. Number one, Billy grinds his teeth. That's just going to grate on his cellmate's nerves.
I don't know if Kathy heard that on the wiretap. It was disgusting.
I did not.
Can I just tell you, if you just imagine a pig snorting, I was like, is there a pig on the tape? And then I realized it's him grinding his teeth. Number two, Jake's smart mouth. That's what's going to get him stitches, not the fact that he got on the stand.
No, he's a pastor. He believes in God. Come
Pastor
on.
Jake.
Yeah, Pastor Jake. Yeah, he spurted that, it's disgusting to me. It's like you're spurting all this scripture and, but he said that one that was his favorite was about taking him to prison and you don't leave until you've paid your last penny.
Oh.
Remember, he said that on the stand, or he said the verse and then I looked it up.
I had such a hard time hearing him when he was going through the Bible verses.
Well, Eric wrote down some of the words
all over again.
Eric wrote down like, I forgot, it's in the notes. And then I was like, well, let me piece this together. And I Googled it. And it was actually a pretty appropriate scripture for him. It's just, let the sheriff take me away and put me in prison, and I won't leave till I pay my last penny. So, but man,
Yeah.
you know, he might get hurt in prison for walking around spurting off religious stuff all the time. You know what I'm saying? Like, if he's going to be judged a Christian.
But listen, is he doing that in prison or is he doing that on the stand?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh,
Yeah.
I think he must be doing something in the jail, because Parker asked him, have you tried to save souls since you've been in the jail, or since you've been in jail? And Andy, there's something there, because Andy Wilson objected. He was very fast to object to that. And the whole questioning about, do you have an interest in Cambodia? I didn't understand that either.
Oh,
I get to the
well,
bottom
Yeah,
of
I'm
that.
still trying to figure that out. I mean, and I even asked Parker before they started one morning. I said, Mr. Parker, you're going to have to explain to me when this is all over and done with what the hell Cambodia's got to do with it, and the guitar, and so and because Andy objected. I mean,
What did
firmly,
Parker say when you asked him that?
he laughed at me. He just
of
laughed
course
at
he
me.
did.
I mean, I wouldn't have expected anything else, but he just
Well,
chuckled at me.
part of that, I think part of that is, I think there's something on jail calls, because Andy Wilson said something like, Your Honor, we discussed this. So I think he's on jail calls. I don't know. Maybe he's been promised some plush accommodations. I don't know, because I thought Nash in his opening statement said something to the effect of, you know, when you hear of the inducements or something to that effect, when you hear what they dangled in front of him, I'm wondering if he somehow thinks when he gets to prison that he's going to be able to sit around and learn to play the guitar, and there's going to be a weight room. And I don't know. I'm like, what is there more to this that we don't know? Like,
Well, he
you know.
will have all those things that you just said, and then
Yeah.
some. If you're going to go to prison, PC is where it's at, baby, because you're out of your cell for most of the day, and you have access to a microwave. You've got big flat screen TVs that are sitting on the floor. You got people cooking Saturdays and Sundays when they're watching college football and NFL. You know, it's party. There's partying in, not, I don't mean drinking partying, but I mean,
you can make that hooch out of the fruit from the commissary, though. I saw a video on it.
well, yeah, but most PC inmates are so scared to death of getting in trouble because we had them at Lucasville for 3 years before I left. They had somebody had a big idea in Columbus that sending them to Lucasville was a good idea. So yeah, I had PC down here at Lucasville, and they are catered to. Oh my goodness.
I think Jake thinks he's going to go to prison and be like the prison pastor.
Yeah.
Like he's going to lead a flock.
Mm-hmm. That's why he's growing his hair long, like Jesus.
It's always been kind of like that, though.
Yeah.
I'm still curious where the pastor hero came from.
Yes.
Yeah.
They objected to that too. It was all that stuff. So what does pastor hero mean? Like, are people there calling him a hero? Like they think that he actually...
Or maybe he's saving so many souls in there that they consider him a hero.
Yes, that's what's happening, GiGi. That's exactly.
Okay, look, my dogs, I think we got a dog fight. I'll be right
here.
back.
I got this one.
Yeah, he's being good. My two, it sounds like, you know.
This
Mine's
one's
down at my feet
Storm.
sleeping.
Her name is Storm, and all she wants to do is go back to bed because all she does is sleep.
Oh, Joe is saying, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this since GiGi stepped away, but Joe Kranitz is asking, let's talk jurisdiction of Dana's house. I'm so over this because
it's such a non-issue issue. It's a non-issue.
Yeah, I'm over it because they already ruled on this. I guess, like, you know, if the Dana's, I remember a pretrial hearing about this a while ago, and actually they tried this during Rita Newcomb's case too. They tried to say it was charged in the wrong county, whatever. But there's a thing, like there's something in the statute where if it's like all connected or something, you know.
So here's the thing, Angenette. Let me just say this. I don't know who on this will remember the McStay family murders in California that I covered, the also 4 and 5 month trial that lasted forever. So this family of mom, dad, and 2 little boys were killed, and they were buried in shallow graves out in the Mojave Desert and all of that. So the prosecution's theory was they were killed in their home in a totally different county, down in San Diego, down by the border, but their bodies were discovered buried up in San Bernardino County, hours away. And the case was tried in San Bernardino County. So that was always my question. I was like, why is this being tried here if you believe the murders were there? And I didn't get a great answer, except that the San Diego law enforcement didn't do a great investigation. And then when they found the bodies in San Bernardino, those people came in and decided they would do it. And so my point is, I don't think jurisdiction is always dead set, regardless of what Darrell Brooks says about subject matter jurisdiction. Okay?
Oh God.
We'll just get away from that. Because in that case, they were able to choose to try it in a county where the body's found and not necessarily where they believe they were killed. So in this case, like Angenette said, it's all one thing. It's all one thing. It's all one night of horrific murders. So why separate the one out? And it's totally fine to try them all in one county. But they've been arguing this jurisdiction from pretrial to jury selection to before opening statements. Like, it's been all along. I think there's no grounds here to care about it. I think
it was argued today.
Yes, that's what we're saying. Yeah, today they went back to arguing it again.
It's insane.
How is it 2022 and we don't know where our county line is?
I mean, I'm over it, because if you're gonna pick this thing apart, then oh my God, let's go do the conspiracy charge in Adams County at because since at Peterson Road, that's where they hatched this thing. I mean, like, come on, like I know too, like Adams County, they showed up that day when the murders happened, and they were kind of like, yep, if you guys want it. They were like, the sheriff out there, he was just like, you guys, it's yours, because all those county lines, Scioto, Adams, and Pike, they're all right there. I mean, you're driving up Union Hill Road and you're in Adams County. And then as you're going up the hill to make the turn around the bend, it says, welcome to Pike County. I mean, it's all right there. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I think, I don't know. I just, look, y'all, when I'm doing this, when George testified, I knew it was going to be 2 a.m. nights for me because I have other things to do during the day. And then you got to get all your notes condensed. And I'm sitting there and I don't know. I think I texted Biggie. I was like, I've got to go to bed. I literally just thought to myself, what if it was Jake and Angela all along? And then I was like, my mind went there this week, y'all. It's been a crazy week for this.
So I said, we have an editorial meeting every morning at Law and Crime, and we're covering all these cases, right? So my focus is not on Wagner, because that's where Angenette's focus is. That's what she does. That's her expertise. And I'm on all these other cases. But I said that I listened to George's testimony, and I was listening to it that whole day. And had I not known a lot of things that I know, and I am the jury. Now, granted, I didn't get to see Jake or Angela, right? But I do know a lot more. But if I'm the jury and I'm hearing just George, I'm not positive that he was involved. And this is a big problem for the prosecution. A big problem.
Absolutely.
I think she caught him in some stuff yesterday, but at the same time, it was, I thought he was good. I mean, he didn't think about his answers. I mean, she was asking him questions and he had,
Angenette, is he like this super uber high IQ guy?
No, but like Angie Canepa was like, you were trained to do this, like from your time you were a child, like, she was basically saying you were trained to be a criminal.
Is he kept us cool and seemed to have an answer for everything, and I don't see him as a very highly intelligent person.
I think they're like good at like doing mechanical stuff. You know what I mean? So maybe intelligence can come from that. So I'm not gonna like act like I know how smart he is, but I didn't think she got him ruffled at all. I mean, he was like, he looked her right in the eye, and I mean, I don't, whether the jury believes him or not, I still thought, I was like, wow, this is impressive. I don't know if impressive is the right word, but
Well, no, I mean, he was solid. I mean,
yeah.
she couldn't break him.
Sorry,
I
I
mean,
told
there
my
was never going to be a Perry Mason moment, right? There was
No,
never
but
going to be like, oh, you got me.
remember what you guys know and what these jurors know should be really far apart, right? They should be the most down the middle, unbiased jury ever. And so they're only hearing what they're hearing. And they're not hearing anything outside of their presence or what happened before or any of these shows or whatever. And I am a little skeptical about how this verdict is going to go. Because remember, it only takes one person. Only one person can hang that jury. And I don't know. I don't know what these jurors are like, or these citizens of that county are like. And now they may be like, I hate him, Jake on the stand. I hate her, Angela on the stand. But George all of a sudden looks like he's just poor, pitiful Georgie, right? One person. It only takes one person to think
I
about.
think there was a little bit too much poor me, like with,
yeah.
you
He
know,
really-
yesterday.
that's what I said. He's so bitter about his childhood. And like the first few hours was just, Jake got this. I got a $2,500 truck, and
None of my kids get any car or truck. So let's just get that out there.
I just don't think his whole blanket for just not knowing anything about anything. I think that's the biggest chink in his armor. He basically just, I didn't know.
Yeah, I think that's just too. No, because even if you thought you were raised to think cops are crooked and that they were framing your family, if you really thought that, I mean, you still might kind of start thinking about it when BCI comes and says at the border and they say, hey, we got these shell casings and we got your mom buying these shoes. And you would start to think about it a little bit. Like, I mean, not just like, oh, I asked my brother and he said he didn't do it. He didn't do it.
And we never talked about it when we got in the car.
So part of my thing is we've heard so much testimony about how tight the family is, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Everything, everything from how often you can have sex with your wife, right?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is in this family. So now George wants the jury to believe that he did not know a mass murder happened over several hours all night long from the closest people in his life.
I agree.
Yeah.
Come on.
I do think that is going to be maybe what does it. I mean, because that's what's been pounded. And that's what the prosecution has done a good job of, is pulling that dynamic together and making it so bizarre and so unforgettable of the examples of how connected these people were, that in the jury room, that's going to come in. It's going to be something that they have to discuss. And so like you say, Kathy, it really, I'm not convinced. I look at the facts. I look at everything like a juror because I have no legal degree. And I'm, I could be sitting on that jury if I didn't have a podcast. So but from an evidence standpoint, you got a choice, A or B, Angela and Jake or George, because that's all they got. Had they not got the confessions, how did this even go to trial?
Well, that's why. Why do you think it was unsolved for so many years?
Yeah.
Like, this case does not have what it needs without those confessions.
Yeah, they really did almost pull off the perfect crime.
Really, they did.
Yeah.
They had picked up their shell casings off the property. I think we might not be here.
I absolutely agree.
But do you think, honestly, though, here's my thought, and I wish I'd asked Joe Scott before he left. Do you think that they just were that good and didn't leave evidence? Or do you think maybe things were missed at the crime scene? I mean, I know that's not something you could answer, but that's something that I've thought about.
I think they took steps. I mean, Jake said he tried to collect the shell casings. It was too messy at Frankie's. They just got out of there or whatever they did. So he did try. I mean, he messed up because he didn't get all of the shell casings at Hannah Mae's.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, I mean, they processed those trailers. You know, we saw all of the photos. Oh my God,
Yeah.
all the photos of these, you know, the things being lifted, the shoe prints or the gel impressions and all that. So I think I don't think it was that. I think with the DNA, this was never a DNA case because everybody
Right.
was asleep, you know? I mean, there was no struggle. So I think that's
Sound
part of the
asleep.
reason. Plus the
Let
ski
me-
masks.
Let me rewind back to what Gigi asked a minute ago because I forgot about it until just now when she was asking about the bombshell.
Oh,
The other one that was huge and was brand new to me was Jake handing Billy his 1911, and he's picking up casings, and Billy pumps more rounds into
Frankie.
Yeah.
Frankie.
That was, but he added that
Yeah,
Mhm.
on
Yeah.
Cross or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
And why was that never talked about again?
Mhm.
You know what I think is weird about that too is the fact that he also said that Billy was really concerned that a 22 wasn't going to do it, like that it wasn't going to kill the people. It wouldn't
wasn't gonna-
penetrate the skull.
Yep.
But then Billy takes the Colt 1911, according to Jake. He hands it to him, and then he shoots Frankie some more. I'm just like, oh my God, it was so horrific. But yeah, that was kind of a bombshell because it didn't come out on direct. It came out on Cross. And then Jake said that he had told the prosecutors about it prior
Just
to his
passed the law.
testimony. And the defense had never heard about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kathy, did you see the clip that I played of when they announced that George was going on the stand? Should I play it for her?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, look,
play
you
it.
got to watch Canepa, okay?
I did not see this. In real
She's
life.
been down, right?
We need the jury, I think. I thought I had misunderstood.
Oh, wait. It's already happened. Okay, let me go back.
What's the-
You got to watch it twice. Canepa, and then you got to watch, like, the judge.
That's because George Washington Wagner's
Okay, and now
Like, wait,
look
what?
look at Wilson. Watch. I don't know what he's
Yeah.
ready to bolt. Watch
Yeah,
it.
he gets halfway up out of his seat and then has to sit back down.
He's almost like, I object to this. Oh, wait, I can't object to it. Wait, I'm just kidding.
Oh man, I've watched that like 50 times.
So
I've
that's
looked at
actually the first time I've seen it, even
Is
though
it-
that's our footage, because I'm immersed in Daryl Brooks land, right? So that is hilarious. that
yeah. So that
she
was
did
before
not-
the jury came in. They were doing all this evidence, and there were no witnesses for the defense. You know, at the courthouse. So it was. I mean, the judge is kind of like laid back, and he's like, "Are you going to call a defense?" And he says, "George Washington." And then Judge Deering goes. I mean, he's just like, you know, he's a little blown over. You could tell it got him too. And then the cop there, Scheider, kind of looks over at Wilson and grins. It was just funny.
He
I literally
did?
have watched that 50 times. Every head in that frame, I have studied their reaction.
So here's the funny thing. I have an app that is right with our control room. So I always hear them all the time. And these are our control room engineers, right? They're running everything behind the scenes, and we're in Daryl Brooks. So we're doing this other stuff. And all of a sudden I hear one of them go, they just called George Wagner to the stand. And someone else goes, what? And then someone else goes, I don't know. Like 4 of them have the name George Wagner. So I don't know who's coming to the stand.
Well,
Yeah,
I
is
was
it
texting
3, 4, 5, or
Vicky,
6?
and I was getting ready, and I'm like, you know, I'm getting my notes ready and getting my day set up, and you know, I got like one ear in the TV, the other ear, because like I multitask, so I'll have like music on one side, and I'm able to do that, like, because I love music, so I have one music going in here, so I was listening to Pink Floyd, and then it's like George Washington Wagner the fourth, and I'm like, Biggie, did he just say George Washington Wagner the fourth? He's like, I don't know. So then I rewound it back, and then that's when I saw everybody's reaction. But that was before the jury was brought in, and then the
No,
judge
it
was
was early because we have our editorial meeting at
Yeah.
9 a.m. every morning, and Angenette was in that meeting with us. So we're all on this Zoom, right? We're in this meeting, and we're talking about what's going to happen today, what are we going to cover, what's going on, and then all of a sudden I have my tweet deck over on my other monitor, and I have my Twitter pulled up, and I'm like, I think George just took the stand. It was like a shock to
Yeah.
everyone.
Kathy, I
Because
told them earlier. I told my listeners I would eat my shoe if George Wagner took the stand. So I'm gonna get a cupcake with like a little shoe on it.
No, you have to eat your actual shoe.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, y'all can just watch me die on screen. Yeah, choke on my shoelace or something. That'd be the way I'd go.
But it was one of that. And not only did it catch her off guard, but it literally caught everybody off guard. We're like, wait, what? And then will he opt in or out? The whole,
I was
the whole
blown away.
stupid part of this trial, you have to wait. Somebody's trying to broadcast the trial. We're like, can we show him? Can we not? I hate the whole drama of it all. So,
Yeah.
Here's my thing. When I saw Jason over there, Jason's the bailiff, very nice guy. And I saw him bent over at the table, and George, I was like, are you really asking the defendant if he's opting? He's a defendant. He's not a witness. Rule 12C is not for defendants.
He doesn't get to opt out, but guess what? They had him fill out the paperwork.
I know, it was annoying.
So in Ohio, if you're the defendant, you can't opt out, apparently. Ohio needs to change their law ASAP.
Yeah, it needs to
2022.
be clarified. This is for like undercover cops, crime victims, minors. I mean, I've never covered a case in Ohio, where they made us turn off everything because somebody if they didn't want to be shown, didn't matter. Voice still went out. And you know why they do that? Because it's a public trial. Like the Sixth Amendment says, I think a speedy and public trial. Public's number 2. It's important. So we should at least provide audio.
Yeah. Well, it's 2022. I mean, we have the capabilities, and I think it promotes transparency in the justice system.
Right.
Because there are a lot of things about it that's flawed.
By the way, Angenette, what happened when Jake was going to testify and he opted out? There was no room. There was like a fire drill. There was like a whole problem because the public couldn't all get in to the public trial of the biggest massacre in Ohio history.
Well, then the second morning that he was testifying, I get to the courthouse, right? And there's a line of people inside the courthouse.
And you know what?
And I was like, and there were people in the courthouse walking in, like, I won't say who, but the person or people rolled their eyes, and I thought to myself, well, you created this, because guess what? If it was on the live stream, everybody'd be sitting on their couch watching this.
And that's what these judges and prosecutors don't realize, that if you don't want people storming your courthouse and distracting the jury, which is the biggest argument they have against cameras, is distracting the jury. Well, then you have a case like this where now you have a huge problem because you won't put them on camera. So the entire public has to show up at the courthouse, because guess what? It's a public trial and everyone has the right to see and hear it. I don't know. I get this question a lot. So I just want to, what about Billy having marks on his face at their funeral? He always has something on his face. I think he's got like face rot or something.
Yeah. People have remarked about that mark, and
he constantly has it.
Yeah, and it's been in some hearings too that he's had that weird mark. So I think there's just something. Maybe he picks it. Maybe something.
They said they had that bloody knife they found, and it was Billy because he picks his skin with a knife.
Ew.
Wait, what?
No. Ew, no.
Did you remember that, Biggie?
Yeah.
Wait, when was that?
Gosh, who testified to that? I think it was maybe Chris Newcomb. Chris Newcomb was the one that testified to that. Something about, I believe. But yeah, Billy would pick his skin.
That's disgusting.
With a knife. Of course, this is the same guy who would duct tape, like a grade 3 suture with some electrical tape or duct tape to his
True,
board.
right? Yeah, stitch Jake up with black electrical tape, right?
Hey, let me ask you guys this. They said, now Jake testified that he broke the tip of his knife off trying to get in that door.
Right.
I didn't see the tip of that knife broke off.
When you see that, the picture of that knife, did you see anything broke off?
Not
it wasn't
a thing.
broken.
Not a thing.
And it wasn't even in the door.
Mm-mm.
It was like on the side of the door.
Yep.
So he put it in the wrong place.
Mm-hmm.
And that he said, oh, I thought I broke the tip off. Like after, because I think they showed it to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, I thought I broke the tip off.
Yeah.
Okay. I missed that part.
No.
I mean, there's so much like with Jake's testimony. I was just sitting there and I was like, wow. I mean, that whole pregnant chicken thing, I just don't think that's gotten the attention it deserves, because it just opened the floodgates for Parker. You know, he literally in the some of the prosecutor, like not Andy, I didn't see him laughing, but I think I saw Angie Canepa laughing when Parker's like, do you tell people that you sold a woman a pregnant chicken at swap days or something? And
Oh my
Jake literally was like, he
Yeah.
starts laughing.
Yeah, he
The
literally.
worst criminal of all time in the history of the world is
Give him the needle.
But
Yeah,
he said, I've
and he
told that
says, "I've told
story so many times, I can't remember if it's true or not.
Yeah.
And then Parker's like, oh, really? So do you have problems with your memory? And he's like, yeah, actually I do. And it opens this whole floodgate to, he's like, oh, really? Tell us about that. And he said, well, my mind's kind of like a jigsaw puzzle, and some of the pieces are sometimes missing, and I remember things like they didn't really happen. And I was like, oh my God.
Was a great witness for the state.
But the pregnant chicken, I think I'm just like,
Yeah,
I was like, I kept looking. I looked over at the prosecutors when he said that, and I was like, I need to see this is why we needed the second camera, because I need to see who's cringing. Pregnant chicken, guys. Pregnant chicken. Jake has told that story so many times, he doesn't know if it's true or not.
That just tells me all I need to know about Jake selling pregnant chickens that aren't pregnant, right? That was the whole thing. They weren't pregnant.
He's a smooth talker. That's the thing. He's a con man. He can talk anybody into anything. He's got this silver tongue, you know? Like I think they're all in their own way good talkers.
Yeah, no, it's obvious.
Which is weird because they were all just isolated and homeschooled by Angela. So how do they have any intelligence at all?
Because they were taught from birth to be thieves and cons and stuff.
Smooth talkers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean,
and you have
Wagner crime family is what, you know.
George isn't breaking that cycle when we hear him on the wire screaming at Bullvine about they want to take you away and kill me. Kill you. You know, he doesn't break that cycle there very well, does he?
No. It's.
I just wish I could understand half of the wiretaps. Like,
oh, please.
I'm so upset about it. We still haven't gotten the transcript.
Brings up something good because I like GiGi says, like she's a juror, like I'm a juror, I see it from that point of view, and it's not exactly true because she does know more than jurors. And I've always said the same thing. I've always said, because I don't have a law degree, right? I don't, like, I'm a juror, I'm a trial watcher or whatever, but these jurors are going to have to dissect this. It's going to take forever. First of all, it's going to take forever. Yeah. But they're going to have to dissect things from what they saw out of George on the stand and what they heard from George's mouth. And those two things don't necessarily line up, because when I heard George screaming at Jake about Beth Ann and how she's going to ruin the family. Like, what does George care? He hates the family. He doesn't want any part of his family. What does he care what Jake does, right? So hopefully the jurors are very intelligent. They're going to go through and try and match up those things, what George says and the evidence they have of what he says. And he was definitely more involved than not.
I feel like he was trying to run the show, like on the wiretaps, like talking about who gets the best lawyer and, you know, all this stuff. It's like he's trying to take charge and telling Angela, you know, the only reason you and Dad ever got in trouble, I love you, Mom, and you're going to get mad for me saying this, but the only reason you and Dad ever got in trouble is because you caved, and I ain't caving and I ain't crumbling. I'm going on the offensive and all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, that sounds bad. And you got to cut the head off the snake so the body.
Yeah.
I'm like, who's the snake?
And what are you going to cave about?
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
like, you're not guilty. Why? Or if you weren't involved, why would you don't have to cave? You know.
Right.
But
yeah.
I don't know.
The problem I have is all of this, right? So logical people like us trying to dissect it and all this can come one way. But this jury, first of all, are not true crime fanatics like this. They're not way into all this stuff. And Angenette has heard me say this 100 times. I try and give my husband as like the ultimate juror, because he doesn't care about any of this. He doesn't care about true crime. He doesn't care about pop culture. He doesn't know anything that's going on in the news. He doesn't care about politics. He's like, I just want to watch my movies on Netflix. I just want, right. Okay. So he's my person that I'm like, I talked to some things about. He's my ultimate juror. So if those people are on there, how are they going to dissect? Wait a minute. How many days have we been? Who's got the day count? How many days are we in this?
Well,
46.
I only do the days I cover.
I think it's 46.
All my listeners, by the way.
46, I believe.
46,
Yeah.
yeah.
46 days and completely disjointed. There's never been a trial that I've ever covered where, first of all, the prosecution's opening statement made 0 sense. And she kept going, oh, and I forgot to tell you about this. Oh, but let me go back to, okay, that, wash it out. The opening statement you can't keep track of. But now, sometimes in our cases, we have a defense call a witness out of turn, a witness out of turn for a purpose, right?
Yeah.
What happened in this trial? In this trial, nobody rested. Everybody called their cases. We went back and forth. Nobody knew what was happening. We didn't bring you in for 4 hours because we were arguing over stuff. Wait, these guys are back there like playing Candy Crush or doing whatever, and they have to figure out this most horrific crime. What is going to happen in that jury room? Like, honestly, what's going to happen?
I felt really bad for the jurors.
I
you
did
know?
too.
When you have the prosecutor stand up and tell the judge that she's worried that the jury is going to protest and walk out.
Yeah.
Now, what does that say about that trial?
How about you prosecute your case a little better than what you're doing?
She literally stood up and said that. I about lost my mind.
Yeah, no, I heard her.
I was messaging Angenette and telling her, I was like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
Look, that opening statement.
And she forgot Kenneth in that.
Yeah, she didn't even put Kenneth's graphic up. But listen, it took me, remember, Eric, I kept texting you. I took literally verbatim the entire 7.5, 8 hours, however long it took to get through it, and took out like the ums. And then it took me until 1 a.m. that night to get that in chronological order. That's how long it took.
And I didn't even try. I kept telling Angenette, I don't even know what she's saying. Like, I don't even know. I'm done.
It was confusing. And the other thing too, she left off Kent's graphic. Didn't even have a picture up for him. Right, and then she got gunshot wound, the amount wrong on a couple of people.
They were all wrong, but Angenette explained this to me, right, Angenette? Those slides she was using was from Mike DeWine's presser, right?
No, it was from, and it's funny because I tried to request this. It was from the grand jury proceedings in 2018, and it said Attorney General Mike DeWine on it. So because it's been all over the screen at the trial, I tried to request it. I figured, oh, the AG's office, they have to have this on file since it was an AG PowerPoint from grand jury. And they were like, you can't have that. That's grand jury material. And they seemed kind of upset that I asked for it. But I was like, well, the only reason I'm asking for it is because some of that stuff we'd like to have pictures of. And it was in the opening statement. So it's kind of like public now. So why does it matter? It was up on the screen.
That was because
it's 4 years old.
Yeah, one thing I try and do in almost every trial we cover is really tweet the openings. Like, I'm big on that. So I'm usually tweeting the videos, I'm tweeting the screenshots. I'm really big on that. And then my work life gets crazy and I can't do all that. But I try and I was going crazy because those slides did not match up with the evidence. The amount of gunshots did not match up with what the slide said. And I kept texting Angenette. I was like, wait, what? How many times was so-and-so shot? She's like, well, I think it's this amount. I'm like, that's not what's on the slide. And so it turns out these are the very original information that came out originally. And then later on, they get the real story, like in every investigation. And so those slides were not necessarily accurate. And what she was saying, Knepa was up there going, and then I think it was 5, maybe it was 6 shots. I'm not sure. Anyway, and then she would go on. And I was what?
I think she misstated and I think she corrected herself on the number of shots on one of the victims coming back from a break or something like that. I don't remember.
Not know every single detail of the biggest case you're ever going to prosecute in your career. How do you not know?
Thank you. You just said it all.
Look at Nicholas Cruz. Look at the Parkland shooter. That prosecutor, you guys, is like 80 years old. Okay. He is honestly that old. He can tell you the names of every of the 17 victims in Parkland. Okay. He can tell you the order they were shot in. He can tell you exactly where Nicholas Cruz was in the school. He walked through and never looked at a note, never looked at one single note, because that's the biggest case he's ever had in his life, and he was passionate. And then we backed that up with Angenette Levy, who didn't have a clue what she was doing. Okay. I can't be on the show.
I mean, Michael, I must say,
There
Michael
goes my
Statz's
sponsor.
opening for Cruz, that was impressive. Like,
Yes.
he spoke extemporaneously. He just stood there and walked the jury through it. He didn't have one note. It was very good. Very good.
And then back that up with Canepa, which I get, it's very complicated, right? Use your notes, have your facts, and be very succinct to these citizens that don't want to be there. They don't want to be there. They don't want to know about this case. You need to lay it out in layman's terms, in very simple terms. And it was the opposite. Her opening was the opposite of that, completely the opposite.
I know this case like the back of my hand. I was confused as heck for all of it.
Yeah.
I've been surprised by the lack of it. I know they've shown yucky crime scene photos. I know we've had some visuals, but I just thought we'd have more visuals.
Well,
I'm gonna tell you, if you watch them do the evidence, they were really loose with those body pictures. Really loose with the body pictures. I think I saw everybody but two.
Yeah, the other day during the exhibit argument, or the one that went
Well,
until like 8
that
o'clock.
wasn't the case early on, because we weren't allowed to see a speck of blood. Not even
I know.
one speck. Not even a single speck, because
I know.
that's offensive.
That's
Yeah.
the most ludicrous
You know,
thing
and then you
ever.
were talking about the opting out, and then like for me, like
Oh,
this is
I
what I
know.
think.
I
You know,
know, GiGi.
You want to talk about like somebody who's brave? This man right here to opt in and relive the worst day of his life. And then I think not long after him was some government paid official that came on that opted out.
The sheriff.
And I was
The
like,
sheriff. It was the elected official.
Right. Yeah.
Runs for election.
But he wasn't even the sheriff when this crime happened.
Right.
No.
Right.
Yeah,
So
he was
that
like
was
an
in prison.
investigator, major or
His
something.
photo over and over again that day. I kept tweeting.
Ooh, somebody got feedback.
I kept saying, "This is who's on the stand right now."
Who's feeding back?
Here, let me see if it's me. I'll plug in my headphones.
My dog's howling. he's by the door outside.
I still hear it.
Yeah, I had to leave the screen because I told my oldest daughter, when you get home, come through the front door, because they always come through my studio, and it's like 5 degrees outside, and I didn't unlock the door, and I had my phone off, and she knew not to ring the bell, so she's just out there. So
I do think I do want to give some, like, I don't want to say props, that sounds too casual, but I really admire the Roden family and the Manley family and Donald Stone for having the I don't know, the strength to get up there and go on camera. I feel like they want to do right by their family members, and they want accountability.
Right.
Yep.
And they were brave enough through all their pain and their grief to get up there and to show everybody, this is what happened to my loved one, and this is what I saw. And I just feel, even though I don't, you know, they have kept to themselves quite a bit. I've just always felt so, just obviously, like, sadness is not even the word, just awful for them. And Miss Geneva, you know, Chris Senior's mother, she comes in there. It's nothing in that courthouse is handicap accessible. She has a cane. She has a very hard time getting up the steps, and she has come. I know she hasn't come to the trial like every day, or at least maybe she's down in that room in the first floor.
Yeah.
But it's painful for her to get up those stairs.
But she's been there.
And she comes there and she listens. And I mean, I don't know how they get through this, because one family member, I can't imagine 8. I mean, so I have a lot of admiration for them and their strength.
Yeah. Yeah. I got the high pitched noise, Michelle. I think it was me. Sorry, guys. I was just making sure y'all were still awake. That was calculated.
And I feel that too for Beth and Tabby.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I felt really badly for Tabby, especially.
They got up there and exposed their lives to things to the world that, they didn't want to do that and have.
And talked about being sexually abused.
Yeah. And I mean, there was a time too, I forget who was on cross, but it was something that, man, I just felt like it was almost like victim blaming or survivor blaming. I try to refer to people as survivors who's been through that, but there was a line of questioning by one of the defense attorneys I thought was just really inappropriate, and it was too tabby, and it was about that. I'll have
So
to
it
go
was
back
Rick
and watch.
Nash then,
Yeah, okay, I think it was, yeah, but
because he did the cross. I missed some of that cross.
Yeah, it
Unfortunately, I have to
was.
go back and watch it.
I don't know, man. It's just, yeah, this has been a game changing week, though, y'all. It's been one where you think you know this inside and out, or at least, yeah, definitely going to get convicted. I just worry now because I don't want to see the Rodens go through that or the Gilly family, 6 years. I mean, unimaginable time. 6 Christmases without their loved ones, 5 coming up on 6, it's just, Geneva Roden lost like 2 sons that day. Kenneth and
Yeah.
Chris Sr.
Right.
Yeah, but imagine,
3.
sorry, is it me that has the feedback?
I think it might be you. I don't think it's me.
So can we hear it now? I had been muted this whole time. So, the thing is that we all know when this first happened, right? It was so nobody knew. So it was more than just waiting for all this time for justice, waiting for all the time to get somebody arrested, right? Like it took forever to solve this case.
Yeah.
All the stuff, all the background, it was a drug deal gone wrong. There was cartel involved, like all this stuff that family had to go through. Who cares if they're growing weed? Honestly, who cares? Nobody cares.
Yeah.
Right? But they had to go through all that. It was a long time. It was a long time before somebody was arrested. And like I've never had a family member murdered. So I can't get in their heads. And then they had so many of them murdered. Like it's horrible. And when you see them in the courtroom, it's just like, look, these are just everyday people, right? These are just people trying to live their life, and now they're thrust into this nightmare, and all because somebody was selfish.
Because of an imaginary fear.
Yeah.
If that's even true, that it was all about their fear of
I go back
Sophia
to
being
selfish
molested.
because I know how like divorces work and child custody work, and it brings out the very.
Hey, I'm going to go out, see if it's me.
Okay. I don't hear it personally, so you guys tell me.
I hear it. Yeah.
I hear it.
Must be me then, maybe.
Do you have earphones that you can put on or headphones?
I might. All right, I'll stop talking for now. You guys talk.
Somebody, I see Hash Brown's in here. I don't know if he's still on here, but hi, Hash Brown. Somebody is saying that Canepa did not want to prosecute the case. That's not, I mean, it's not my understanding because she left the AG's office and then they still had her come on as special prosecutor. So, I mean, I
Can
think
you
she
imagine
wanted
one of
to.
the Wagner's men gets put in with Charlie Reeder? That would be
Yeah.
awkward.
But Toledo, I think Toledo, I don't think that's maximum. Let's look it up. Toledo
No.
correct. He's in Toledo Correctional.
Lucasville is the only maximum prison in Ohio.
Is it?
Is it
That's
really?
what we're talking about. Yeah.
I thought it was kind of like, well, I guess it's not.
Oh, I have some
supermax,
pictures,
but-
guys. I had somebody who hadn't seen the murder. That's one picture of that's Kenneth's, I believe. That's Kenneth's residence being towed to that. They took it to an impound lot. Eventually, built like a big bay for it.
Right.
But it was not guarded, and the gate was open. And I was always thinking with that, like, man, crime scene stuff is so particular, and so if something shifts like an inch, that, a defense attorney might hop all over that.
I think a lot of people were saying in the very beginning that they felt that, this was going to be a big deal because they're going to say, chain of custody issues and stuff
Right.
like that. But I mean, even when this story first came out, I was always kind of like, yeah. I mean, I could see if the scenes hadn't been processed, but they had been processed. We knew they had been processed. I mean, I don't remember the exact amount of time, but those scenes were not released for many weeks.
Yeah.
And Union Hill Road was basically shut down for a long time unless you lived there.
Oh, really? I didn't
Yeah,
know
I
that.
mean, they had police at the bottom of the road. I mean, they had police, or deputies, I should say, stationed there for a really long time. I mean, it was a few weeks at least. And then they moved these things and they'd already processed them. So here, I think, I mean, if Jake hadn't confessed, maybe you could have gone down that road if all 4 of them are going to go to trial and you could say they just framed us and well, whatever. Then you could question the evidence. But I think the confession, his admission and agreement to testify against his family members just changed the complexion of the defense cases and all the cases.
Well, Kathy, earlier I said I think the day that Jake confessed, they started prepping George because they had no other choice but to put him on the stand. Really, I bet he was very well coached.
Well, and also the shock, right?
Yeah.
Family unite, like Power Rangers or whatever. Like we're united, right? And then they're all just in their separate prisons and jail cells or whatever. And all of a sudden he gets word, and like George testified, he gets pulled into this other part of the intake part. And all of a sudden, after a long time, someone comes in and tells him Jake confessed. Then it's like, oh, what?
Yeah.
So
Nasty man and told him.
Yeah.
So I have some other pictures that I've found. I blurred out anybody's face that so this apparently is after they've been hunting. So you see Jake on the left, George on the right. Then this picture here is when actually Hannah Mae was in labor with Sophia. And the caption says, "Good morning, wide awake. Wishing she would get here. Mommy and daddy love you so much, Sophia." I always try to look for stuff like this, even if I don't post it, because, it gives you such a glimpse into little pieces of their life. And it's always really weird for me personally when I see video of people like Dana or, hearing Hannah Mae's voice on that recording. It was so weird to me because we only see pictures, and to hear their voice, it made it a lot more real for me.
Yeah.
Just like seeing videos of JJ Vallow running around. It makes him a real little boy. Not that he's not, but I'm just saying you see the energy, you feel that energy.
Well, if there's a conviction, maybe we'll see that in the sentencing phase. Maybe there'll be something like that. And I say that only because, there's a lot more. They have a lot more leeway in the sentencing phase. It'll be interesting if there's a conviction and they move on to that, or penalty phase, I should say, whatever they want to call it.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if George gets up there and says something different if he's convicted. He said, "Oh my God, I'm not, I didn't do this." But I remember covering this case up in Butler County. It was this guy, I forget his name, Calvin McKelton, but he killed he had a girlfriend who was a lawyer, and he killed her and then killed her in Butler County, but dumped her body in Hamilton County. It was a really big deal. I think they called him C Money. But he got up there. He didn't testify in the case, in his defense case, but during the death sentencing or penalty phase, he got up there and he said all this stuff, and he was very well spoken and talked about growing up in the projects and all this stuff. And I don't know, it makes you wonder if George will get up there, should he be convicted, and should they get to that point, because he can get up there and just say whatever he wants without being questioned by the prosecutor in that portion of it. So it'd be interesting to see if he's convicted, if he gets up there and, because then he's gonna have to beg for his life.
Right.
Yeah.
So will they take death off after Billy? Is that how it's going to work? Or do they take death off for George if he's found guilty before sentencing?
See, I think, what I think is going to happen, because all these are connected. I think that I personally, and I could be wrong, because I don't think they know how they're going to do this personally,
Yeah.
but I think they're going to have to go through with the penalty phase because
Mhm.
Jake still has to testify in Billy's trial.
Right.
So all of these are connected. So how can you not go? You've got a death qualified jury. How can you
Yeah.
not go forward with it if you
Mhm.
haven't even gotten to the next guy's trial? And then I guess you could always go back as the prosecutor
This
back to the trial court and say, we want to change the sentence or whatever. Nobody gets executed in Ohio
this
anyway
is
anymore.
Yeah,
listen,
it's
this is like crazy talk. Everything that we just said is like crazy talk. You have a deal to take the death penalty off the table if you testify truthfully. Don't even talk about Billy.
right.
Now testified in George's case. Do you think that they testified truthfully? If so, George doesn't face the death penalty. Doesn't matter what Billy does. Doesn't matter, right?
Mhm.
So if they continue on to the death penalty phase, that confirms the fact that I believe these guys have no idea how to prosecute this case and what they're doing, right?
Mhm.
A deal is a deal. You made a deal that you would take the death penalty off the table if you testified truthfully. We're in this trial only.
Mhm.
Don't take it off the table. That means you don't believe he testified truthfully. Honestly,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to. But I'm with Angenette that I think they're going to continue on. And I think that, and then how do you walk back the death penalty? When the jury comes back and says death, how do you legally walk back the death penalty?
See, I think they're going to have to, if everything goes how they want it and the dominoes kind of, or, the pieces fall into place, they'll have to go back to the trial court, I would think, and say, we need to change this, or we want to, this is my guess. I have no clue. We should actually probably consult a death penalty attorney or an appellate attorney about this, because then it raises the issue on appeal that,
I'm saying
you seated a death qualified jury. So you kind of might have biased.
I'm not even sure they can understand it.
This is a disaster. And look, you can have a death qualified jury and have this deal on the table. But when it's all said and done, the deal you had was for them to testify truthfully.
Mhm.
So it has nothing to do with the next case. It has to do with this case. So if they move on to the death penalty phase in this trial, then I'm convinced that the prosecution team has no clue what they are doing, because that needed to come off. And as soon as Jake testified, the defense motioned for the death penalty to come off the table, and Canepa wouldn't do it.
Yep.
So this isn't the time. I'm like, this is the time.
Right.
This is the deal. So do you not believe he testified truthfully? Or are you just hedging your bets and waiting to see what's going to happen? That's not how this should work.
Yeah, that's when she said we won't talk about it.
Right.
Yeah, in public.
Talk about it
Right.
in private.
Yeah.
We're all private about everything we do around here.
Yeah.
Well, what's interesting too is that Jake, when he was on the stand, he said something like, they asked him what he wanted when he was going to plead guilty. And he said, well, I asked for a lot of things. And then he said that he wanted his family members to be able to go to trial without fearing the possibility of death. But they still are.
Yeah.
I guess
I
think it meant something different to him to the prosecution. It has to testify to the satisfaction of the state. That's
right. Yeah. But there were so many discrepancies between her openings and Jake's testimony that did he not testify truthfully? I mean, is that still an issue? Because there were just things that she said he's going to testify to this, and he didn't.
Well, there was some interesting times where he would ask her, like in response to her question, he would ask a question like, well, what do you mean this? Or do you mean that? And there were a couple of times, or at least once, where she said, you tell me, like she wasn't going to provide him information to assist him in answering the question because it could taint the question or something.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. So there was some interesting, I want to hear the proffer. I want to hear the 12 hours.
Too.
I want to hear what he said, how he said it. George has listened to it. He said he listened to it. So I want to hear it.
Well, we're
just going to get the transcripts, y'all.
Oh my God. Yeah. The transcripts, they're $6,000, right?
For the wiretaps.
Oh, no. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for Jake and Angela's testimony. It's here.
It's the whole background that the Law and Crime Network has to deal with. If we want the transcripts of the two people that we should have heard them,
Right. Yeah.
then it's
$6,000.
$6,000.
No, I'll ad lib and we'll just do like, interpretation.
well, you know what
We'll
I
do
thought about
improv.
doing?
You have
I
got
thought
to
about
be kidding me.
I thought about crowdfunding.
Yeah, there you go.
Absolutely.
Because they did that for some of the unsealed documents in the Depp case. This lawyer, Andrea Burkhart, she said, I'm going to buy them. It was like $3,000 or something for unsealed documents. And so she crowdfunded it through PayPal and people donated and they got all these unsealed documents. So apparently you're paying for the court reporter. Okay. That's
Mhm.
who's the transcript belongs to,
Yeah.
whether she's an independent contractor or what have you. So it's $4 a page. So she gave that estimate. It's $6,000. Once somebody pays that initial $6,000 for whatever, I guess a prep, I don't know what it is, then the price comes down. So a lot of us in the media pool were talking about, should we go in together and do this?
Mhm.
But part of me is like, maybe I'll set up a crowdfunding thing. I mean, if people are interested and they give $5, I mean, just put them up on the internet so everybody can read them. But I want to
Yeah.
hear the proffer. I want to hear the proffer. It
Will
might be
we
a long
ever hear the
time.
proffer?
I feel like we should be able to put in a FOIA once these things go up on appeal or whatever. If Billy and George are indeed convicted,
Right.
I mean, we're not going to get it now, but
Yeah.
I think we should be allowed to hear the proffer.
I think so too.
And
For
Jake's
sure.
Montana interview. I want to hear how he
Me
talked in
too.
that.
I just want to hear George's. What's the big mystery?
I mean, unless Deering seals all that stuff, that is
He can't
public
do
record.
that. Yeah,
It's
he can't
public
steal
record.
it.
He
Mm-mm.
cannot seal that stuff.
Right.
I mean,
So,
technically, anything that's sealed right now should be unsealed because we're in trial. I mean,
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
exactly. Yep.
right. I'm talking about when we'll be able to. Well, somebody will be able to get it, but I'm saying he can't.
Right, but we still have to pay for it. So even if it's public record after the fact, and Gigi and I know this about Jodi Arias because we both covered that together. Which, by the way, I don't know if she talked about that, but
I tell people that's how I
Gigi and
cut
I
my
go
true
way back
crime.
to Jodi Arias's trial, and we were there together, and that's how this all started, the love affair between Gigi and I. But to get that, you had to pay a lot of money after the fact
Mhm.
to the court to get transcripts and the court recorded video of areas. So it isn't like it's unheard of. I think there's still going to be money involved, but they need to be unsealed, and then you can make your choice whether you're going to pay for it. It's not just free like when you go online right now and find the indictment online or whatever.
Yeah.
Right.
The transcripts are a whole other ball of wax.
Well,
Eric?
sounds like the proffer is only audio, which,
Ugh.
video,
What are they
please.
doing in Ohio? It's 2022. People, get you a $100 webcam in there.
Yeah, it would have been nice to.
Hey, Gigi, we have courtrooms around the
video.
country that we have to fax requests to right now.
Oh, Lord, no.
Oh, yes. And we have other where we request like body cam footage or we request stuff, and they have to snail mail it to us.
Oh my gosh.
So that all still exists around the country.
Another point on
wow.
open records, something I've been noticing recently. I put in a request for something recently, and then I didn't even respond because they sent me a bill and they were charging me for the time it took them to fulfill the request. And I was like,
open records.
Oh my
people
gosh.
should know stuff.
I was like, is this a joke? I'm like, no, like this is not
Yeah.
how this should work. I shouldn't have to pay for your person's prep time if I'm paying you for the record. I mean, I get that times are tough, right? And the price of gas and eggs or whatever, but come on, really? It's kind of nuts. So
I'm trying to find the teeth grinding video for Kathy.
No, I don't want to see it.
Are you sure?
No, I promise I don't want to see it.
you can listen to it. It's
Yeah,
so
you won't even have to see
disgusting.
it. You
I
just
promise I don't want to listen to anyone grinding their teeth.
Oh, I tell you what, I see now while like 5 people are like, he grind his teeth. Yeah.
You just want
That's
my
how Billy
reaction.
is.
You just want my initial reaction because I don't have a filter.
No, oh, exactly. So you're on to it. I know you too well.
Yes, Gigi describes it as a pig, and to me it sounds like he's chewing on bubble wrap.
Okay, no, I don't want either one of that. No.
Eric, I texted it to you with like the timestamp, and we text so much. I'm trying to
Yeah, I heard it.
wade through all the stupid talk we always do.
Oh, is that little Chris and Dana? It is
Where?
on your screen.
Oh, that is Cody Manley, I think. Isn't that his name, Cody Manley?
And Dana?
Are you looking at the same screen?
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry. For some reason, I ended up on YouTube and it rewound. Okay,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so sorry. I was on the
No,
wrong.
that's okay. I thought
I need to
I'm
get a
not
second
seeing that.
screen. I've only got one screen and it gets me too jumbled up. Let me
Kathy,
okay,
you know
now
what I
I
actually
see.
still have. I should try to find it.
But
I have the business card that Jody Arias's mom gave me to go see her in prison.
do you
Remember
remember
when she
my
said,
reaction? Do you remember when that was handed to you?
"Oh my gosh," she was like, "You
And
can
I
go visit
said-
her tonight."
I said, Jennifer McKelvey, if you go to the prison and interview Jodi Arias, we will no longer be friends.
Miss Chewy, I didn't mod you, girlfriend. I'm sorry. Thanks to all my mods. I never knew I needed a mod. Apparently, my friend
You need
Michelle was
a
like,
mod.
"Girlfriend, you need a mod." Let me mod you.
Well, remember, you were friends with Jody's buddy Donovan.
Oh, look, don't even go there.
Friends. Oh, so friends.
Don't even go there.
Oh,
I had
so
one lunch with her.
friends. Total friends.
One lunch. She was a hugger.
Okay, that's more than I want to know.
Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to add you, Miss Chewy. I don't know why it's not on here. Yeah, so I don't know. I know the family's just got to be beside themselves right now, though.
Yeah, I feel really badly for them. And
I do.
I mean, plus this has gone on. This was supposed to be 6 to 8 weeks.
Right. They said 30 days initially. What did I say, Eric?
Yeah.
I said I'll eat my shoe if it's 30 days.
We're going into week 11.
You have to
Next
stop
week.
eating your shoe. You need
I
to
know, right?
come up
It's a
with different
saying, and I just need to stop saying it. Clearly, it's doing me no good.
I really want, I don't know if Kathy heard it. I want Kathy to hear where Jake tells Angela that she's delusional.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. You're not her mother. No,
he sounded reasonable.
No, he did. I mean, out of all of them, actually, on that recording, he did.
About her talking about Sophie and then saying you're not her mother.
Well, it was that, and then it was about something about Beth Ann and like you're delusional, like you know, like it was it was something.
Yeah, no, and then he's like, "You need to be taking your medicine." What medicine?
Oh no, I didn't hear that.
Your
No,
hormones.
No. I heard that you need to get on your meds.
What medicine? She said, "Hormones. It's not time for that, Jake."
Yes, I did hear that.
Oh my gosh, that was so funny.
I don't know why we didn't hear more. I don't understand the obsession with the children.
I really don't either.
Angela, there was some, we heard there was testimony about her having a hysterectomy, but come on, what? Like, did she want more kids? I don't get, like, what's the, like, why didn't anybody ask Angela?
We heard testimony that Angela was molested as a child.
Yeah, she in the Air Force.
Yeah, she was sexually assaulted in the Air Force and got out early.
Normally, that's where the obsession comes from for then more children when you're an adult and that everybody's getting molested and sexually assaulted. So I didn't hear that part about the Air Force, but and
her father was abusive, apparently physically abusive, but we didn't hear about sexual abuse.
That Beth Ann opened up about things that happened in her childhood, and then that was used against her.
Yeah.
The fact that Angela believes, and then George, I guess too, and Jake, I guess too, that then you abuse every child regardless of sex isn't a thing. That's not a fact. It's not like there is a truth to it carries on, right? There is a truth to some of that, but it's not like boys and girls and just everybody and everything all the time. Like these people are just nuts.
How about the fact that they let George and Tabby sleep together when they're 13?
Oh, well, and Jake and Hannah.
Yeah.
There's no boundaries to any of these people, but then they're like, wait, you can't be around kids.
Yeah. 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 And then half the time when Angela's with the kids, she's like, bovine. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
it sounded
First
annoyed.
of all, I thought it was bovine. I thought it was a cow when I first heard, and I was like, who is naming their child that? And then, so I was at least happy to know that it wasn't bovine, but
But it's like a video game character or
Of
something
course
if you
it is.
Google it.
of course. And
Vicky, did you
no
know
disrespect to that poor little boy. I mean, I'm not trying to disrespect.
he doesn't go by that name anymore, by the
Thank
way?
goodness. But that family's a mess.
Can I
Vicky,
just say, oh, sorry.
Oh,
But
no. I was just wondering if Vicky knew the Rodens.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Angela would complain about Sophia on the wiretaps, like to George. She was saying something like, "Oh, Sophia's just been so bad. What'd she
Yep.
do? Well, don't tell Jake because he might spank her when he gets home." And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
you had to you wanted her. Why are you spanking her? And like, you know, if I was
Yeah.
like, good God, why? I thought you loved this child. Like, I understand maybe some kids need to be spanked, but how old was she then? 3? Maybe. I was just like,
Yeah.
maybe
3
4.
being raised by that family.
Yeah. It's, I mean, I never heard anything, and we got a very small selection, of course, but, you know, Beth said there was always yelling there, and then the kids would go in the corner and start beating up on each other while the yelling's going
Yes.
on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
because they were feeding off the negative
Right.
energy.
It's not healthy. I
That
mean,
was
those
so-
kids were,
that was really sad when she
Yeah.
said that Bovine and Sophia would just beat on each other and hit each other. And then you're like, you know exactly what they were living in.
yep. And the other thing too is you think about George mentioned yesterday on the stand that that Vine had severe panic attacks, and then you hear the wiretaps and you're like, well, no wonder this poor kid is probably so stressed out to live under such tense conditions day in and day out.
And then for a period of time, they were all living in one hotel room, right?
Oh gosh, no. Yeah, I can't even. I mean, George was the smart one. He's like, I'm gonna go to my truck. That's my castle. You know, that's his place. I mean, yeah. And look, I would have been weirded out. They acted like it was a big deal. Beth was weirded out that, like, hey, we're all gonna share a room and it's gonna be great. And Beth's like, what?
And I'm out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, and Billy, who can blame him? I was like, I'm going to mama's. Forget all y'all.
Can I just bring up something too about Angela? Like, and Eric, you'll remember this. I couldn't believe it when during Angela's testimony, when Angie Canepa asked her, so did Tabby ever try to poison you guys or something like that? And she said, and Angela just got very serious and she's like, yes. And Angie Canepa was like, well, tell me about that. Or something like that. And she said, well, Jake and I liked this vanilla international, whatever coffee. And she put dog hair in our coffee.
Oh my God.
I mean, she literally said that. And then she
Yeah.
said another time, George likes a cherry Kool-Aid. And she put something in his Kool-Aid and he got really sick for a few days. I
Yeah.
mean, she was like convinced that Tabby had put dog hair in their coffee and that
Yeah.
she was like poisoning them.
And how
Yeah.
does that poison you anyway?
Oh, wow.
Because
No,
my
but I don't. That's what I don't understand. Dog hair in the coffee. I'm like, is she actually thinking that? Because she was like, and then I said, Jacob, she put, do you have dog hair in your coffee?
No, she said, Jacob, there's dog hair in my coffee.
And I was just like, I've never in my life heard of like somebody thinking they put dog hair in their. I don't understand what that is. I don't
She
know.
is
I just had to say that. All these things keep
and
popping into my head.
It
Yeah,
might
she's
have
50
been.
shades of cray.
It might have been before that particular part of her testimony, but one of the literally chuckle out loud cover up with a fake cough was Angela saying that she was weird compared to them.
Oh, Beth
Yeah,
Ann.
right.
I mean, I literally chuckled and then had to start coughing to make it sound like I wasn't laughing.
But
Yeah.
Chris Newcomb said that Beth Ann was weird.
Well,
Are you talking about Beth Ann or Tabby?
Beth.
Yeah. Chris Newcomb said it too. They all thought she was weird. And she got up there on the stand and I felt really bad for her.
there's
Oh,
your
yeah.
beautiful cousin, Vicky.
Oh,
You know, I look at pictures. I bet she was like the funnest person to be around. Everything I've ever heard about her from people that knew her, and then just she's always smiling. You know, I like to throw up pictures
So
of like
sad.
the reason. You know, it's just we can get so caught up, and we do it in every case. We get caught up in all the side stuff, but
and by the
Man.
way, Dana was working that night, right?
She worked
Yeah,
a
she
double.
worked a double.
How many people in this disaster of a trial have a job and actually work?
It sounded like she worked a lot, and she
I
worked
know. That's
hard.
what I'm saying.
And Chris
Mhm.
Senior worked really hard too.
I'm saying.
And so did it sounded like Hannah Mae worked hard too.
The
She had a
Wagners
job.
worked at stealing,
Yeah.
lying,
Yeah.
doing whatever they could, you know.
They worked at that store called the 5 Finger
There
Discount.
you go. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, and it's, and I said this on an episode earlier this week, which is, okay, so if you want to get like deep into it, think about if these boys had been raised by loving parents, as
Right.
passionate as they were about the potential of their kids getting, protecting them. Had they been raised in like a totally different environment with totally different parents,
Right.
who knows what kind of fathers they could have been if that crazy stuff was channeled into nurturing and loving and and it's just an epic failure on the parents' part, really. But George, here's the thing too. I know a lot of people that had some really messed up childhoods. They don't go out and kill a family of 8. So I don't want to hear he got a truck 2 months before me. And it was worth $16,000.
This is what I say about most of these most of our trials, like with Daryl Brooks and his mom saying he's got mental illness, and even she says he has bipolar, which never was diagnosed, whatever. Okay, so what? People live with that every day, and they don't go out and plow down a whole bunch of people, So, cry me a river.
Yeah, no, I just, yeah, no sympathy. I mean, I really hope that the jury gets it right. That's my hope, but we shall see.
Well, guys, I think I have to hop off here.
Yeah, I'm gonna get there soon too.
Yeah, it's been so nice, but I think I am gonna set up. People seem to be interested in the crowdfunding of the transcripts. I mean, $6,000 is a lot of money, but if people want to do it, I mean, I'll get them and throw them up online so people can read them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to write the check myself, but if people want to contribute, I guess I can do a GoFundMe or something. I don't know. I've never done
one
that.
for the team there, Angenette.
Yeah, $6,000. Oh my God. All right, guys. Well,
all right. Thank you so much for joining us,
having
Angenette.
Me. Bye,
BB,
Eric.
you awake over there, buddy?
Bye, Kathy.
Yeah.
Bye, Angenette.
Bye, Aunt Jeanette.
I said Angenette.
Oh, I thought you said Aunt Jeanette. I was like, oh. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Well, it's 10:53, so I think I'm going to get on my couch.
Joseph Scott Morgan said, "Hey sis, sorry I had to jump onto News Nation. Great to have been on with these guys. Please relay my thanks. Happy Thanksgiving and thankful for your friendship."
Thank you, and to you, Mr. Morgan. I met him in CrimeCon. What a nice guy, and his wife is precious.
Hey, Kim is my girl.
They are so cute. What's the story like? He doesn't have to get up, but she does, so he gets up early to drink coffee with her every day.
She has to get up like at 4:30 in the morning. She's a school teacher, and she goes way far away.
Yeah.
And so this is just really quick. I've known these guys for many years, and I call him one night, and we're talking late at night about an autopsy, okay? And I'm sitting in the bed with my husband, and we got the TV on, and Joe Scott and Kim are sitting in bed, and so we're just laughing about that, right? Like we're talking about his autopsy, and then he's like, yeah, and then she's like, girl, I gotta get up at 4:30 in the morning, and I make Joseph get up with me and have a cup of coffee, even though he hasn't get up. And I go, wait, what? He gets up at 4:30 to have coffee with you? I go, what happens in this house is I have to get up before my husband, so I have to make sure my clothes are outside of the bedroom in the hallway when I get up, so I don't interrupt him. It was just a whole funny thing. Those two are the cutest.
They're precious.
They're the cutest. They are the best people in the world.
They are. And his brother-in-law has a coffee shop online. Oh my gosh. I'm going to tell you right now, I'm a coffee connoisseur. My blood type is like medium roast. And that was some of the best coffee I've ever had. I'm going to tweet it out. It was really cute. That was one of his giveaways, y'all. He had, I still have the bag. Don't have the coffee, but it was like Body Bags coffee.
It was Body
really
Bag.
cute.
It was in a black bag.
Wait. I've got your pencil here. I got to show everybody your pencil you designed. That was like the coolest giveaway ever, too. Wait, my kids may have taken it. They fight over it.
I have one right here. Hang on.
Okay, yeah. You got to show them your pencil.
As I throw all the Christmas gifts around my office, around Okay, here we go. Ready?
Look at that. Isn't that the cutest
Gavel.
pencil?
How do I do this?
Yeah, that's like that.
One crime gavel, double eraser pencil.
That is so cool.
They're not for sale yet, but I have them designed when we went to CrimeCon. So we had some giveaways at our podcast booth with notepads and pencils and whatever. And then Gigi came and she sat and helped me at the lawn crime booth, and it was really fun this year.
Yeah. So Tanya says, can you guys give your jury deliberation feelings? I think it's going to be a nail biter. I really, as much as I hate to say it, I think hung jury is a good possibility. Kathy, in that case, would they, it's like as much as these trials have cost them, and this is
Heaven
something
help us. Heaven help everyone in Ohio if it's a hung jury. So my personal feeling is it's going to take a really long time because these 12 people have to go back and go, what just happened? Okay. That's going to be their first thoughts because they can't talk about this until then. And then they're going to be like, well, I mean, I'm assuming he did it, but I don't know. It's going to be a long process. And what we know about most, I'd say 90% of juries is they're very deliberate. They want to go through and they want to go through every single piece. You guys, this could take forever.
Yeah, it could be a week or two.
In the end, only one person has to hang it. And George may have done enough, unfortunately, because I think he was involved. And unfortunately, I think he may have done enough on the stand. I don't want that to be the case, but it could be enough to hang it. And then guess what? Then the county has to decide what they're going to do. Now, what do? Now we got to move on to Billy. What are we going to do about George? We got Angela and Jake that play. It's a disaster if this ends in a mistrial. So,
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I mean, money-wise, like you say, it's a super poverty-stricken area. We're up to probably over 4 million at this point with just attorney public defender fees, not to mention all that other stuff. And do they, in that case, do they let him, do they keep him in prison? I mean, in jail?
Yes. I don't see them just going, we're not going to retry it and he can go free. I think if this is a hung jury, it's going to cost people a lot more money. A lot.
Yeah, that was Sheriff Reeder, Mary. He was the sheriff that was on from day one.
That was the original sheriff of this case.
Yeah, I bet he would have opted in.
Maybe. I don't even know why the real sheriff, like the current sheriff, didn't opt in. Like, isn't he like, this is my county and I'm sorry that I wasn't on it at first, but now he chickened out.
Yeah, Allie, that's a good point because there are, Biggie, you said, what were some of the charges that you saw today that just didn't have nothing to do? It was like some kind of a criminal enterprise or?
Well, yeah, what I had forgotten about that charge, the criminal enterprise, until today when I went and looked at the charges again. And so I mentioned it to you and Angenette that now it kind of makes sense why Canepa has beat the same horse on all the same stuff for so much, because she's trying to get the criminal enterprise.
Oh, okay.
You see you make understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But also the law is like, if you're there, you're guilty, whether you pulled the trigger or not. So
yeah. I mean, that's the whole point.
The jury believes that he's even like sitting in the truck, you rob a bank and the getaway driver's just as guilty.
Yep, exactly.
Then it's over. So it's about, if it's so hard to believe that he knew nothing until come on. I mean, come on. They were so close. So I see, I go back and forth. I don't know. I want a camera inside the jury room.
I know, right? Hey, if we had portals like Lori and Chad, we could just.
I could totally portal in there.
Portal in there.
Invisible. Yep.
Somebody said Kay Woodcock was in the chat. My blood type is medium roast because I drink coffee all day.
Yeah, it's actually very true about Gigi, and she's about, I don't know, 110 pounds. She's this cute little thing, full of energy and full of coffee.
Yes, full of coffee. That is right. That is how I function.
Now I gotta get off here, man. I got a dog that needs to go outside.
I think we're all feeling that.
Have you heard that they have less evidence against Billy?
Who,
I don't
me?
know if I've really heard anything about Billy too much. That'd be interesting. All right, guys. Thanks to the mods. I appreciate you guys. I didn't get to add a few. I just learned today I need a mods. So Michelle's been on me for a while. So thanks to everybody who donated. I really, really appreciate it. We're going to do this again probably during deliberations after closings. So
So someone's asking about sequestration. That is not the norm unless it's a death penalty case.
There you go.
We don't know. In the guilt phase, it's not normal to sequester a jury. It's very abnormal. It has happened, but it's not the norm. So my guess is in the guilt phase, they would not be sequestered. If they end up at a death penalty phase, which is totally ridiculous in this case, they could be.
Is Canepa doing Billy's trial as well? I think so.
I think so.
Yeah, she's done all the cases.
She's in it. She's in it to win it. So
yeah. Somebody asked me something really quick. Oh, this was something that Angenette actually cleared up on the last live stream we did. So Parker said that George only went to protect Jake, and he agreed. Parker was. It came out like he was agreeing that George went that night, but he was really meaning it more as a question, or like George went that night to protect you. It wasn't that he was agreeing. So that's how Angenette explained it on the last one. So no, because if you say that he went with a gun to his head, you're still putting him at the scene, and that's conspiracy. So they're not gonna, you got to choose. And I've been wondering this, but then, was reading up on it. You have to say he wasn't there, because otherwise he's part of the conspiracy.
Yep.
And then why are we here?
Yep.
So that's why. So yeah, but thank you guys for all coming. We were way up there in the numbers, and still are. So we will. Yeah, he picks the skin with a knife. That's really, really gross.
Yeah, let's stop talking about that.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna send you a picture of it.
No, no, thanks.
Haunt your dreams. Look, listen, I dreamed I was trapped on the Wagner property the other night. They've infiltrated my sleep, y'all.
Listen, we have seen more of Jodi Arias than any human being should ever see. So
yeah, no, she'd turn around and grin at me. And you go in there and the pictures that stick in your mind of Jodi Arias before you go in that courtroom is like the nudie ones, that she took that day. And then you go in there and she looks like an 80-year-old librarian. And I'm like, man, they're just trying to fool this jury.
Oh.
But then you look at Nicholas Cruz, he's got on these big 1970s.
No, you can look up articles that have been written. It's a defense strategy.
Oh, yeah.
It's a legit defense strategy to put glasses on a defendant, to lower their chair, to put them in a sweater. Whatever.
They did it to Jodi.
Not George Wagner, because he's going leather vest all the way.
Listen, I just want to know how bad that leather vest smells. Because they don't have dry cleaning in the
It's the
Pokey.
worst. It's literally the worst. Like, if you want to not come off as a killer, don't wear a leather vest.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
The worst.
Phew. But what I heard was Grandma Frederica years ago dropped off one outfit for the boys, and that's been the outfit you've seen them in the whole time. I wonder if she still talks to them.
Just take the vest off.
Yeah, for real.
That's all.
Take it off, twirl it around, do whatever. But tired of seeing it.
Just a shirt would be good.
Yep. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
They got to cover up that stun.
Well, is it a whole vest though?
Yeah, it kind of is.
I would not be able to sit still if I had a stun vest on. Like if somebody sneezed, I'd be like,
and I've never seen an entire stun vest on a defendant. So that would be very odd to me. There's a stun belt that can happen. And then there's, of course, the shackles, and there's also stun shackles. But I have never known of an entire stun vest. And what danger is he? He's not going to go off and kill people in the audience. He isn't some deranged. He's like, if they believe he's involved in this, it was very methodical. And why? Anyway, I'm just saying. I have heard that also, that it's an entire stun vest, but I have never known that to be in court like that. Stun belt is the most.
He's not in any of the shackles and the cuffs.
Yeah.
The whole vest though? I don't know.
Boy, Jake was, from what I hear.
Well, no, yeah, Jake and Angela, they went over the top with them too. I mean, they literally kept them in their belly chains, which was just ridiculous.
Well, we've seen that too with snitches coming to testify in court. So I'm not,
I
it's
lost
the
that.
defendant that's the weird thing to me. Like, if he's having to wear the black leather vest to cover up a whole stun vest, that's never happened in any trial that I've ever covered. It's a belt, a stun belt, or it's shackles, or you're shackled to the floor. It's so the jury can't notice, but just all for the, I don't know.
Vicky, I'm down if you are.
Well,
Yeah.
the guy holding the button for it to go on and off, it's about probably 6 or 7 inches long.
Is it like one of those game show things, like you're on
Because
Jeopardy?
Stop it. Stop.
people have, you know, there's been people say, "Hey, hit that one time just so we can see what."
Stop it.
See, if I
Yeah.
were in the vest, I would just freak people watching out because every now and then, like when a room's quiet, I'd just be like,
Yes. Hello.
I'd have fun with that. Or like if I were holding the thing and he turned around and looked at me, I'd be like,
Also, though, wait a minute. I still don't know about. I want to know about this because that, like, you can't have a stun vest next to your heart and all that. That's like, you have a bulletproof vest leaving, coming and going from court. I don't know that there's a stun vest. Okay, I need to know more information. I've never known that to be a thing. So
Apparently-
it's on the docket what Deering approved for him to wear.
an entire vest that could
That's where it's
shock
at.
him at his heart seems a little extreme, but maybe.
It wouldn't be no different than firing a stun gun at somebody at your chest.
I know, but usually they have like a stun belt, or they have
mm-hmm.
something a little less extreme where they could control them if they needed to. I mean, I look, I've been surprised at many things in Pike County, so that would not surprise me.
I mean, I totally agree with, you know, I don't think anything is needed. I mean, you've got 8 or 10 officers, you know, literally surrounding him. The only thing that I've thought about is, are they afraid that he might go after somebody in the public and on the family side, or
Mhm.
vice versa?
But again, unless it's someone that's shown to be so deranged they cannot control themselves, and like that's rare. Like, this isn't somebody who's just mass killer of random people across the country. I don't know. It seems very extreme to me if that is a whole shock vest on him. But I've now said that ad nauseum. So
I just got a really sweet email from somebody that taught Hannah Mae and Frankie in school.
oh.
Yeah. Sounds like they were good kids. All right, guys. We'll do this maybe after Dare. Thank you so much. But that's awesome. Stunning.
She is stunning.
Oh, you're too sweet. So I think after closings, it would be fun to do this again. We'll see if that goes better. I'm not dissing Angela Canepa. I respect her. She spent 6 years of her life. Okay. I'm you know, she's human. But, you know, I try not to be mean. So,
well, you know, I'm not attacking her, but
no,
you had way too much time to have such a poor presentation to put out.
it's really true. 6 years.
You could, attacking is a strong word, but look, I've been doing this long enough across the country with prosecutors everywhere. Like, I might have been more prepared than she was. I'm just saying, right? That's why I'm upset, because this is so tragic and so devastating and such a huge thing. And it's like, she doesn't even, okay. That's why I'm upset. I'm upset because do your job and do it right for the victims. And I don't see that happening here. That's, you know, and I just say what I think. So I have.
Okay. Yeah. Kathy, you stick around long enough. Kathy, I'll tell you.
I don't have a filter really, because I'm passionate one way or the other. And by the way, I'm passionate about both sides of the courtroom.
Yeah,
like, I want the prosecutor to be passionate. I want the defense attorney to be passionate. I want you guys doing your jobs and doing them to the full extent. I am a big supporter of defense attorneys, big, and that's not popular. It's not popular to be that. I'm a big supporter of defense attorneys. I just want everyone to do their job to the best they can, and I do not see that happening on the prosecution side in this huge massacre. And
it would have been nice just to see her shows some emotion while she was doing some questioning.
It was so bad. It's so bad.
I mean, it was so bland. You know,
Well, look,
when
I had
Andy-
people in the comments who watched her openings, and then I did my episode, and they're like, "Okay, I figured it out now. Thank you." You know, but it took me forever to get like all of it because it was just like bounce and bounce and bounce and bouncing.
So, GiGi, how does the jury follow any of that?
They
You watch-
don't.
Right. They can't. They can't.
Don't.
Right.
no,
If they didn't
not
know
how
who
that is.
everybody was in this case, they sure as heck didn't know after the prosecution was
Look,
done.
there's a much simpler way to do it. This case is complicated, right? But we have cases where there's multiple victims, there's a way to present this in a simplistic fashion.
I'm
So-
trying to remember how they did it when I sat in the Colorado theater shooter trial. It was so easy to get a good picture of each victim. And there were multiple, more than 8, you know, a lot of hurt people that came in and people that are, you know, paralyzed for life or have big issues. And it was so well done, that case. It was, the jury never had to wonder, but I mean, if you want to confuse a jury, those openings were the way to do it. If they don't know this case in and out, and it's unfortunate because this crime is horrific.
It's so unfortunate. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not like, oh, on the defense side and anti-prosecution. I'm saying that this is so tragic that the prosecution had to be like spot on, like know this case inside and out. Like there's no there's no, oh, I forgot to tell you about this, which she said like 5 times, which I've never heard that ever in an opening.
Yeah.
It was so disjointed and you had so much time to prepare for this. It's upsetting.
Yeah. I know she was sick.
How do you not know? How do you not know in opening statements how many times one of the victims was shot?
Right?
Yeah.
There's 8 people. I would have it memorized. That's
Yeah.
not hard. That's not hard to memorize, right?
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
I think I've got them memorized, but yeah. So and it's true, Whitney, your comment, people that have been raised to be deceptive and to con people out of stuff can probably be the type of person to go sit down and pass a lie detector test with no problems.
Yeah.
So, you know, somebody like Jodi Arias who, man, I'll tell you what, that was one that got up on the stand that was the Hot Mess Express. Like she was the conductor of the Hot Mess Express.
But there was a tackle. There was a linebacker tackle. Remember Jodi Arias?
Yeah.
Her tackle.
And then the ninjas came. And then the gun jammed. Yeah, it was so bad. His sisters are precious. I still keep in touch with a couple.
I know, I do
one of
too,
them.
actually.
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I still actually have my Justice for Travis bracelet around here somewhere.
I have my blue bracelet too.
I do too. Yeah, like mine's
Yeah.
frozen. It was
Well,
on
okay.
my
So
nightstand.
anyway, we digress. We're like obsessed with one case, but we did pour our hearts and souls into that case.
We
And
did. You know, she's selling her artwork online, right?
oh, I can't. I don't talk about her at all anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I do. Obviously, we've mentioned.
But right, clearly we've done it for 5 minutes, but hey.
I don't want to, is what I'm saying.
Hey, Big E, what was the big case that got you started?
the one we're talking about right now.
Is it okay?
Yeah.
I mean, you're good at what you do, man.
Yeah.
Big E is smart. He could have been a lawyer.
And I fell ass backwards. Oh, I fell backwards into it. I was literally uploading old high school football games for all my buddies so they could watch on YouTube. And I just stumbled into this case because I hadn't heard about it yet. And bam, I mean,
Yeah.
Well, you know, I stumbled into Casey Anthony, which nobody should ever say those words together. But that's how this started for me. Quite frankly, turned it into a career, but started with the Casey Anthony trial. And
Oh, I did not know that was the trial that you cut your
you
teeth
didn't
on.
know that.
No, mine was Jody.
Well, anyway, but it's a long story, but like it wasn't that long ago, but it kind of was. And social media wasn't the thing it is now. Like Facebook was kind of even new. And I was a stay-at-home mom. I had a whole career, but when I had my boys, I wanted to be stay-at-home. And my soap opera of choice was watching trials. And that's what happened. I had Casey Anthony on in the background. And then I started finding people that were on Facebook talking about the same trial. Like there are people that talk about this. Like it was all a whole new world for me.
My people.
And I
found my
found
people.
my people.
Yeah.
I created a blog, then I created a website, and then Dan Abrams bought
Court
it.
Chatter was, look, man, that place, yeah. I mean, you had it together early on, your vision for what is now the norm.
It's an it was honestly an obsession, and it still
No.
is today. I'm obsessed by all of it, and not just the sensationalism of it. I'm obsessed with, I want to, at midnight, I'm reading court documents. Like I dig in, and I just love, I like it all about the whole justice system. And then I also like the entertainment value, like who doesn't, right? But anyway,
Kathy is an executive producer for Law and Crime Network.
Yes, Law and Crime Network. I have my own site called Court Chatter, and Dan Abrams years ago decided he wanted to start putting cameras in the courtroom, and he found me and he bought Court Chatter and hired me, and now here we are 6 years later. So
and I mean, really, like you guys are, that's where I watch. And then Johnny Depp happened and bang zoomed y'all to the moon. Hey, I hear the jury in Masterson's deadlocked.
They're deadlocked. We have our person out there in LA, and that's crazy. The judge, they're deadlocked, and judge is like, okay, let's take a whole bunch of time off, and you guys come back after Thanksgiving, and let's resume.
That seems to be the
trend. You're not going to go to Thanksgiving dinner and talk about that you're a juror on the Danny Masterson case.
Right. I know. I say the same thing. Jurors take an oath, and I'm like,
no, girl, come on. We all know how we talk, and there is no way that is not going to happen over Thanksgiving. No
I mean, what is up with courts? Do they normally take the whole week off for Thanksgiving?
So we have a hard time programming, like we're like, what are we doing next week? Like it's been a whole juggle all week, and we thought we might have Wagner, and then all of a sudden we find out this afternoon
we don't have Wagner.
For the most part, we don't have any court the week of Thanksgiving. The only time that happens is when there's a trial that carries over into Monday or Tuesday. Nothing ever starts the Monday of that week. So
that's what I thought.
That's never a thing. Yeah.
So Kathy, what would you recommend as far as going into, like, once Wagner wraps up, what case are you looking forward to either at the end of this month or December?
I can't tell my secrets.
Okay. Well, you can text me your secret.
Here's the problem. Everyone keeps saying, like, why don't you guys put a calendar out of your trials? Like, whatever. Because I can't tell you guys how this works.
Okay.
We're all, no, but I mean, I can. I'm just saying, like, we're all ready. We go. We hire people. We send equipment. We're all ready to go. And it gets delayed. And it gets pushed back. And they plead out. Like, it's constant.
Yeah.
We put like a calendar out, the trials we're covering, then forevermore. It's like, well, you're not doing this yet. The job, we have a trial tracking meeting once a week, and it is like, it changes constantly.
I bet.
Yeah. And a good example is, coming soon to Court TV has been the Daybell case for 2 years now.
Right. Yeah. Vinny Politan ain't going to be like 80 years old.
I gotta tell you, this week we've been working on doing shows that are like the countdown, the most memorable moments of courtroom moments of 2022. And then every year we do a look ahead to trials coming up in 2023. So just like what you're saying. So we get together and we produce this. So I looked at what we did last year, because we do this during the holidays, right? I looked at what we did last year, upcoming trials of 2022. No, 2021. Chad Daybell, Lori Daybell. That was our upcoming trial. And I was like, okay, look, I'm out of this business because
it's
like nuts.
And now we're looking at least October of then, and then who knows? But I mean, look, I thought it was a big thing. She was found competent. Because now here's the thing. She was 10 months last time. They know the diagnosis now. They know what they're doing for her. So hopefully it'll be, if she goes incompetent, it's just like a little hop, skip, and a jump to the pharmacy, and then she's back. But
she's just biding her time until the second coming.
Oh yeah, that's right. Well, Julie Rose still thinks the earthquake's going to happen or something.
It's going to happen right here. I live right here.
Girlfriend, I got an extra room. Come stay with me.
The second coming's happening right here.
You could bring Logan, and we could just sing Hamilton all night together.
They brought in some bigwig doctor for her, GiGi. Have you not heard about that yet?
No, I'm sorry. I did not. I've been all up into Wagner's.
Yeah, Archibald brought in some world-renowned doctor.
Wow.
See, she was never incompetent again. They just wanted to try to get her diagnosed.
Yeah. Well, he's made no bones about it from the day he went on. Her mental state is complex and very fragile.
Well, because Archibald comes out and he's like, who is this crazy person? Right? Like, we all know that she's nuts. She's just not legally nuts. And so
Right.
this guy comes on, he's like, I don't even know what she's talking about. There's all this like second coming, and there's all this like she's going to usher in. And
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he said that
Can
she's
y'all tell I'm
faking.
having a hot flash right now because it's
She's faking. She's,
glistening. Sorry, Eric. It's the hormones.
I missed it.
Not with you. Nobody says on air they're having a hot flash.
You know, I keep it
But
real.
I'm wearing a hoodie. So
Yeah,
it's like,
no,
you know,
girl.
whatever.
When we're done, it's like 20 degrees outside. I'm going out. You're going to see steam coming off of mama.
Okay,
Yes.
we have to get off of this live. We gotta
Yes,
be
we
done.
do have to get off this live. Eric, Kathy, thank you. Angenette, wherever you are, thank you.
Thanks for
Mr.
having
Morgan,
me
thank you. We'll do it again
Nice to
during
be on with
deliberation.
you, Eric. We've never met, but nice.
Yeah.
Banjo
me
girl. That's me. I'm banjo. I speak fluent banjo. I can figure these people out.
Yes.
Eric's bringing all hell, and I'm on my hormones. So, Jake, that's about as dumb as your tattoo. Oh man, I can't help it. Look, I know people that talk like that. So even when I'm not trying, it just comes out. Just the
I was
banjo.
gonna say you talk like that, so I'm not sure
Oh,
what.
Kathy. Kathy. If I talk like that, you can cut my tongue out. Jacob, my hormones bovine. Get me a Band-Aid. Oh boy, Angela. I'm gonna make a shirt. Angela Wagner, 50 Shades of Grey.
Totally.
Yep.
100%. And she gets off the easiest.
Oh my gosh. It's just
Yeah,
it blows my
that's
mind.
disgusting.
I just hope that every day she's in herself, she thinks, who's taking care of Vine
Right.
and Sophie?
Right.
Who's got them?
And she drove this whole ship where it is right now.
Right in the ground.
Yep.
Yeah. It's insane. I mean, you know, and then she said on the stand, did you think you'd get away with it? Well, you never get away with it. Well, you were sure happy to get your house in Alaska. Oh, Jake, it's so nice. It's got 40 acres in a basement. Yeah, it's weird. I do think though, I'll tell you this. I did think that yesterday when George was talking about Hannah Mae, I did see sincerity in his face.
I think he actually loved Hannah Mae and did consider her to be a little sister.
You could tell, but not enough to stop the murders.
Yeah, no, I don't care. Yeah,
So,
right.
but maybe it's
all-
regret, you know.
It's all regret. I was just gonna say it's all regret right now. That's what
There
it
you
is.
go. You and me, we got this telepathy going on, so we better get off.
Get out of this live right now.
You don't want to get too deep in this brain, girl.
Bye.
All right, guys. Big E, you are the man of the house. Thank you so much for being here. Kathy, I'm so glad you hopped on. We'll do this again during deliberations just to pass the time.
All right.
I think it's going to be a hot minute for those, so maybe
Yeah.
we do a few. Thank you, everybody who donated. I really appreciate it. It keeps the internet on in here. And yeah, so we'll do it again. Thanks, everybody, for your kind comments and to the moderators. Appreciate you
Happy
guys. It's been
Thanksgiving,
nice
y'all.
having moderators. I didn't
Happy
have to.
Thanksgiving to you too.
Yeah, I didn't have to remove all the spam bots myself that were trying to get you guys to go to nudie sites. So thank you guys.
Okay. All right.
Yep. All right.
Thanks,
Have a
bye-bye.
good one, y'all. We will see you soon.